Phoenix Nights. Chapter 1237. What a good thing to be a man. Grind the mirror. What they meant was that men liked men, and women liked women. In other words, they were homosexual relationships. Lin Feng had never thought that Madame Chi, who was rumored to be promiscuous, would actually be the grind the mirror. Since she was the grind the mirror, the rumors about her couldn't be taken seriously. How could a woman with the grind the mirror possibly have a relationship with a man? It was just like how a normal man would like a woman. If a normal man had an ambiguous relationship with another man, he would probably be disgusted to death. It was even more so for the women of the mirror boundary. Don't even talk about letting them have relations with men. Not to mention having an intimate relationship with a man, they would feel disgusted even if they had some intimate contact with him. He, that's right, I have the grind the mirror. Are you surprised? Madame Chi looked at Lin Feng proudly. From her point of view, she already had everything under control. Even Lin Feng's life was in her hands. Lin Feng said, Madame Chi, we have no enmity between us in the past. I don't understand why you're scheming against me. Madame Chi straddled Lin Feng's body and placed her hands on the bed. She looked down at Lin Feng and said, Because of lust. Lin Feng rolled his eyes and said, You like women, not men. Could it be that my charm is so great that a woman with the grind the mirror has developed lust for me? Madame Chi rolled her eyes at Lin Feng and said, Love between a man and a woman is just a type of lust. My lust is supreme power. I want to establish a huge empire, and I will become the empress of that empire. Lin Feng said, It's not easy to satisfy a lust like you, so you're constantly using your beauty to seduce people with status and think of ways to control them? To be used by you? Madame Chi pinched Lin Feng's cheek and said, You're really smart. I like people like you. Please leave my body. Just thinking about a woman with the grind the mirror sitting on me makes me feel like ants are crawling all over my body. Lin Feng said. Madame Chi snorted coldly. Forget it. Other men can't even get such treatment even if they want to. My body is clean, and to men like you, it doesn't matter if a woman has been sharpened or not. She's still a woman. How could you not have any thoughts about a beautiful woman like me sitting on your lap? Tender and delicate? Bah! You really have the nerve to put gold on your face. I think you should be called a snake and scorpion, right? If my guess is correct, you didn't come here for the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, but specifically for me, right? Lin Feng looked at Madame Chi. Madame Chi nodded and said, That's right, I came especially for you. Previously I invited you, but you refused my invitation, which made me very sad, so I had no choice but to come here personally. For the sake of a young cultivator from a small organization like me, is it worth it? Lin Feng said helplessly. Lin Gongzi, don't you think you're underestimating yourself too much? First of all, your talent is even greater than Murong Tianqian's, so you'll definitely become a god in the future. Now I'm taking advantage of your youth to control you. In the future, it'll be the same as controlling a god-level powerhouse. Secondly, you're the great elder of the Central Union of Spiritual Array Masters, and you've also inherited the legacy of the Celestial Master Path. As far as I know, the 4 old bastards of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters are already planning to leave the Tianwu continent. Among the successors, you're one of the most favored successors. I think you know better than me just how powerful the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters is. Finally, you're quite likable. If I liked men, I would definitely like a man like you, but unfortunately, I don't like men. But even if I don't like men, I like keeping male slaves, so I plan to train you to be my male slave. You think you have the ability to control me? What a joke! Lin Feng looked at Madame Chi with disdain. Madame Chi smiled as she said, Of course I have my ways. I've cultivated the great slavery technique, which can forcefully enslave anyone. The great enslavement art was also one of the 3,000 great Das. Once subdued by the great enslavement technique, then, in the future, he would never be able to betray the person who enslaved him, and would become the other party's slave. In a sense, This great enslavement technique was somewhat similar to Lin Feng's great purification technique. But there were differences. Lin Feng's great purification technique was used to purify people. Once purified, the other party would be severed from their 7 emotions and 6 desires, living like a walking corpse. However, the cultivators enslaved by the great enslavement technique still had their own feelings. Therefore, when comparing the two abilities, the great purification technique was naturally more domineering. So that's how it is. Looks like you used the great enslavement art to control many experts. I wonder how many experts you've controlled over the years? Lin Feng narrowed his eyes as he looked at Madame Qi. 5 Rebirth Realm Cultivators, 372 Life and Death Realm Cultivators, 465 Creation Realm Cultivators, and 13,629 Yin-Yang Realm Cultivators. Madame Qi smiled as she spoke. Lin Feng couldn't help but gasp. The power that Madame Qi possessed was too terrifying. With this power, they could probably contend against the 4 ancient empires. With this power, you can already establish a huge empire. Lin Feng took a deep breath as he spoke. That's right. I'm also planning to establish a new empire. However, right now, I shouldn't be thinking about establishing a new empire. I should be thinking about making you my male slave. As soon as she finished speaking, Madame Qi's hands started forming seals. She started to condense the great enslavement technique. She planned to enslave Lin Feng and make Lin Feng her female slave. At that moment, Lin Feng, who was originally unable to move, flipped over and pressed Madame Qi, who was condensing the great enslavement technique, under his body. Then, he moved as fast as lightning and tapped Madame Qi's body. Madame Qi's magic power was instantly scattered. Originally, Madame Qi's cultivation was close to the rebirth realm and was unfathomable. Lin Feng might not be her match in a one-on-one fight, but Lin Feng had suddenly attacked and caught Madame Qi off guard. Madame Qi didn't even have time to react before her magic power was scattered and she became Lin Feng's prisoner. No, this is impossible. Madame Qi couldn't believe what was happening and screamed loudly. Chapter 1238. She had gone from being high up and in control of everything to falling to the bottom of the valley and being captured. Even Madame Qi, who had always been calm and collected, could not accept this extreme contrast, and she could not help but scream in anger. She struggled with all her might, but she had lost all her magic power, so how could she break free? Someone! Madame Qi yelled. However, there was no response from outside. Lin Feng smiled at Madame Qi and said, "Don't waste your time. Even if you scream yourself hoarse, no one will answer you. You set up a restriction?" Madame Qi's voice trembled slightly. Lin Feng smiled. "At least you're not completely stupid. You." Madame Qi glared fiercely at Lin Feng. If she could, she really wanted to humiliate this detestable man who dared to mock her. However, Madame Qi knew that the current situation was very good for her. She had been restrained by Lin Feng, so she needed to calmly talk to Lin Feng and strive for the best outcome. That was the most important thing right now. After thinking this through, Madame Qi took a deep breath and said, "Lin Gongzi, there's no deep hatred between us. Everything that happened before was just a misunderstanding. I'm willing to make peace with you. As long as you let me go, I'll agree to anything you want. Wealth, beauties, divine abilities, treasures. I'll do my best to satisfy you. You want to make peace with me now? What about when you were scheming against me?" Lin Feng sneered. Madame Qi immediately looked like she was about to cry as she said, "I was wrong, but fortunately, I haven't made a big mistake yet. I hope that you can forgive me this time since I'm just a weak woman." "You actually have the nerve to call yourself a weak woman? Aren't you a little too thick-skinned?" Lin Feng could not help but pout. Madame Qi gritted her teeth, but she did not dare to show it on her face. She looked pitifully at Lin Feng and said, "Sir, please do me a favor and forgive me this time. I can give you a few secrets in exchange." "Secret? If I convert you into my slave, all your secrets will be mine." Lin Feng smiled. Madame Chi's delicate body suddenly trembled when she heard the word convert. Madame Chi was a woman with an extremely high desire for power. How could she be willing to become someone else's slave? And after being converted, they would lose their sense of self. They were even worse than slaves. Madame Chi's face was filled with horror when she thought of the life of a walking corpse after being converted. You can actually feel fear? Lin Feng looked at Madame Chi in surprise. You know the great purification technique? Madame Chi looked at Lin Feng in horror. Lin Feng smiled as he said, That's right, my great purification is even more domineering than your great slavery technique. It can directly turn people into the most loyal slaves. You can't do this to me. I'd rather die than be converted, Madame Chi said with a trembling voice. She was really scared now. Die? Do you think you can die just because you want to now? Your little life is already in my hands, so you can't die even if you want to. You want to make me your male slave? That's great. I'm also planning to make you my female slave and train you well. Lin Feng laughed and was about to use the great purification technique to convert Madame Chi. Wait! Madame Chi cried out in horror. What? Do you have anything else to say? Lin Feng looked at Madame Chi. I can't accept this. Why did my flawless plan fail at your hands in the end? Where did it go wrong? Madame Chi glared at Lin Feng. She wanted to know the truth. There was a saying that even if one died, one had to die with their eyes open. Just like Madame Chi now. Lin Feng asked. Have you investigated who my friends are? Madame Chi didn't understand why Lin Feng would ask such a question, but she still replied, You went to the Sea Realm for Sikong Jiayue, so he should be a good friend of yours. Also, you have a good relationship with Jiang Yudi of the immemorial Jiang family, and it's said that you have a good relationship with Qian Rui Yuan of the immemorial Qian family. As for the Little Rock King, Madame Chi mentioned 7 or 8 people, and most of them were quite accurate. Most of them were peak experts that Lin Feng had met when he was training outside. Lin Feng said, But you neglected one thing. These people you mentioned are all peak experts of the younger generation, but you didn't investigate the situation within my sect. Within your sect? Madame Chi frowned slightly. The Blue Cloud sect was an ancient power, and it wasn't worth mentioning. Only Huangfu Qingtian, who had fought a battle to the death with Lin Feng, was a powerful figure. The other young cultivators were all small fries, so Madame Chi naturally didn't investigate them. Lin Feng smiled and said, I have a good friend called the Old Drunkard, and he always drags me to drink with him. My alcohol tolerance wasn't good, but after drinking with that old thing, I managed to train it. Usually, we can drink all night without getting drunk, but how much did I drink tonight? Are you pretending to be drunk? Madame Chi gritted her teeth in anger. Yes, if I didn't pretend to be drunk, how would I know what you're up to? Actually, I really hoped that you wouldn't play any tricks, but unfortunately, you just had to scheme against me. Also, I forgot to tell you that I'm also an alchemist, and I can tell what you've added to your 100 Flowers wine just by tasting it. Although I didn't know that you were burning Buddha fat, I did know that after burning it, it would fuse with an ingredient called the Profoundine flower in the 100 Flowers wine, and it would cause great harm to cultivators. Those who were hit by it would feel as if they had taken a chi-dispersing pill, and their magic power would be completely lost. Thus, I decided to beat you at your own game and lure you in. Lin Feng smiled. You're really a meticulous person, and I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Madame Chi bit her red lips and said. Then, she continued, I'm willing to submit and pledge my loyalty to you, but I hope that you won't convert me. Do you think I'll agree? Lin Feng sneered. If you don't agree, I'll activate the restriction in my soul and destroy it. You have to think clearly. After destroying my soul, I'll die, and the people I control will regain their freedom. If you don't kill me, I'll submit to you and listen to your orders, and you'll get more than you can imagine, said Madame Chi. Ha 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 ha, I like to make deals with people like you. Lin Feng laughed. He pinched Madame Chi's chin and sucked on her alluring red lips. Madame Chi's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to bite Lin Feng. Before she could bite him, Lin Feng moved away in time. He looked at the angry Madame Qi and said with a smile, "From now on, you're mine, and everything you control is mine. Now make a blood oath to be loyal to me." Chapter 1239. I, Qi Shuang, swear to the heavens that from now on, I will be loyal to Lin Feng. If I dare to violate this oath, my soul will be shattered, and I will die a horrible death. Madame Qi raised her right hand and swore. Suddenly, an imprint of the oath appeared in Madame Qi's mind. If Madame Qi dared to betray Lin Feng, she would die a horrible death. This was the first time Lin Feng had heard Madame Qi's name, and he reached out to caress her beautiful face. Madame Qi avoided him. She had the sharpening mirror barrier, so she didn't like to be in contact with men, especially when men touched her body. This was something that Madame Qi couldn't accept. "What? You don't like it when I touch you?" Lin Feng asked with a smile. "Your subordinate wouldn't dare." Madame Qi bit her lip. "Do you want to become a real woman?" Lin Feng smiled at Madame Qi. Madame Qi's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper, and she shook her head. "No, I'm scared." "Master, you can't do this to me." Madame Qi looked at Lin Feng in horror. Perhaps Madame Qi had been traumatized in the past, but she was so afraid of intimate contact with men. Lin Feng patted her butt and said, "I'll spare you for now. You can leave now." Madame Qi let out a long breath and got off the bed before respectfully standing next to it. Lin Feng asked, "Since you want to establish a huge empire, have you thought about where you want to establish it?" Madame Qi replied, "So you plan on occupying a few of the 72 prefectures in the north to establish your empire?" The 72 prefectures in the north were relatively weak, so Madame Qi's plan wasn't bad. Even if there were factions that resisted, with Madame Qi's power, she could easily destroy them. Madame Qi paused for a moment before continuing. "Your subordinate has already submitted to you, young master, and I'm willing to hand over all of my power to you," Lin Feng said. "I won't interfere with your life, so you can still establish your own empire and be your empress." "Huh!" Madame Qi looked at Lin Feng in disbelief. She thought she had heard wrong. Lin Feng slightly smiled as he replied, "You don't need to doubt your ears, you didn't hear wrong. However, I suggested that you establish your empire in an overseas world because of the following considerations. First, the overseas world is rich in resources. Second, there are many places in the overseas world that are completely uninhabited. There are many places where you can establish an empire. When the time comes to display your empire's power, countless people will flock there, seeking protection. Third, although the 72 prefectures in the north are relatively weak, if you want to conquer a few prefectures to establish an empire, even if you succeed, you will be attacked by countless powers. That's because you're breaking the rules of the continent. If every peak power is able to wantonly seize the territories of those weaker than them, wouldn't the continent become chaotic? That's why the rules of the martial heaven continent cannot be challenged." Madame Qi nodded and said, "Young master's words have indeed hit the nail on the head. If we establish an empire on the sea, where should we establish it?" Lin Feng replied, "The martial heaven continent is surrounded by seas. I'm not familiar with the other seas, but I'm quite familiar with the Eastern Sea. Since Desire Island has existed for so many years, why don't we use Desire Island as the center and establish an empire?" "Establish an empire?" Madame Qi was shocked. Lin Feng continued, "If we don't establish an empire, then even if we establish an empire in the future, it will only be like the cultivators in the Eastern Sea. It's already not bad that it can accommodate a few billion people, but it's still too small. Since we want to establish an empire, we naturally have to establish an empire that is large enough to accommodate at least 1 trillion people. Only then can it be called an immortal empire." After hearing Lin Feng's words, Madame Qi couldn't help but become excited. If he could establish an empire that could accommodate trillions of people on the sea, that would be too terrifying. Then, this empire would become the absolute overlord of the sea. It would be able to sweep away any power on the sea. "But it's too difficult to establish an empire," Madame Qi said. "Didn't you control a lot of powerful people?" This is the time to use them. You have to learn the principle of making the best use of things and people doing their duty. Lin Feng smiled. Madame Chi's eyes suddenly lit up. She hurriedly bowed to Lin Feng and said, "Thank you for your guidance, master." Lin Feng nodded and then said, "There are many hidden experts in the overseas world, and ordinary overseas forces can't invite them. If the reclamation of the sea is completed, then a giant force like the ancient Jiang family will appear on the sea, and this will be unprecedented. At that time, there will definitely be many experts who will come to join us, and we won't have to use schemes and tricks to control other cultivators. This subordinate will remember." Madame Chi hurriedly said. "All right, you can leave now." Lin Feng waved his hand and said. Madame Chi said, "Young master, this subordinate still has something to worry about." "Tell me about it," Lin Feng said. "There are many forces on the sea, but due to various reasons, it's very difficult for a superforce to appear on the sea. If we reclaim the sea and establish an empire, will it attract the fear of many forces on the sea? Those forces are very likely to attack us. If that happens, I'm afraid the plan will be difficult to complete." Madame Chi said worriedly. "There is indeed such a possibility, but the world is bustling for benefits. So what if the sea forces besiege us? Spend a lot of money to invite the 9 great pirate kings over. It's enough to repel any sea forces," Lin Feng said. Madame Chi's eyes lit up. She said, "Yes, master, this subordinate already understands what to do." After pausing for a moment, Madame Chi continued, "The night is long. This subordinate will call Nienny over and let her serve you." "Chu Nienny?" Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked at Madame Chi and said, "Isn't Chu Nienny your woman? Are you willing to give her to me?" At the banquet, when Madame Chi said that she would give Chu Nienny to Lin Feng, Chu Nienny's emotions fluctuated a lot. Lin Feng naturally saw it clearly. In addition, Lin Feng later found out that Madame Chi was a Grindmere Pai, and Chu Nienny was Madame Chi's personal maid. Chu Nienny was obviously Madame Chi's woman. "Master is wise." Madame Chi bowed and said, "But don't worry, master. Chu Nienny's body is very clean, and the power of her primordial yin is also present. Moreover, Chu Nienny is not a Grindmere Pai woman, so she will serve master comfortably. No need." Lin Feng waved his hand. "Yes." Madame Chi bowed. "Master, rest well. This subordinate will take her leave." Madame Chi then left. After Madame Chi left, Lin Feng didn't feel sleepy at all. He simply started to cultivate. Lin Feng sat cross-legged, holding the 9-colored illusory stone in his hand, and entered a state of enlightenment. 90,000 star diagrams appeared in his mind. This was the soul-refining technique. The 90,000 star diagrams turned into 90,000 stars. Lin Feng looked into the depths of the stars. The man in white stood in the deepest part of the 90,000 stars, full of mystery and ethereal. He was like an ancient emperor with his back to the world, lonely and desolate. Chapter 1240. 10 days later, Lin Feng arrived outside Great Eastern Ancient City. Lady Chi said, "Master, let Nienny stay by your side and serve you." Lin Feng waved his hand and said, "There's no need for that. You can go back now. Gather people and contact the 9 great pirate kings. We'll start filling the sea and establishing a country." Lady Chi hurriedly nodded. Thinking about filling the sea and establishing a country, thinking about how she was about to become an empress, this woman with a strong desire for power couldn't help but feel excited. Lin Feng entered Great Eastern Ancient City and took the space-time wormhole to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Great Eastern Ancient City didn't have a space-time wormhole to reach the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. In fact, the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters was a bit special. The ancestral Spiritual Array Masters were a mysterious profession. Under their noble and bright clothes, they needed absolute silence. Only in a quiet environment could a Spiritual Array Master comprehend and research great arrays. Therefore, the temple city where the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters was located was a very quiet ancient city. Most of the cultivators there were spiritual array masters. It wasn't easy for people from the outside world to casually enter the temple city, because the temple city didn't have a transmission array or a space-time wormhole. To reach the temple city, one had to pass through a prehistoric ancient forest that was full of danger. It was almost impossible for ordinary cultivators to go to the temple city, and the people from the top forces rarely went to the temple city. This was because they knew the rules of the temple of spiritual array masters. Ordinary people couldn't disturb the peace of the temple city. Of course, if there were some important matters, they could go to the temple of spiritual array masters to ask for help, such as setting up a large defensive array for the sect. It was naturally very difficult to ask the upper echelons of the temple of spiritual array masters for help. This was because spiritual array masters did not lack cultivation resources. Some high-level spiritual array masters could casually refine some offensive talismans, defensive talismans, and so on, which could be sold for sky-high prices. Therefore, even if they could ask the powerful spiritual array masters of the temple to help, the price that the top forces had to pay was often to owe the temple of spiritual array masters a favor. Many forces also liked to owe the temple of spiritual array masters a favor, because the temple of spiritual array masters was too powerful. To be able to owe a favor, it was inextricably linked to the temple of spiritual array masters. There was a well-known saying in the Tianwu continent. This saying was called, "Don't enter a battle." In fact, this was the terrifying aspect of a spiritual array master. If a heaven-rank spiritual array master meticulously set up a large array, it could even trap a rebirth realm expert to death. From this, one could see how terrifying a group of spiritual array masters were. What's more, a cultivator's life today was inseparable from a spirit array master. A cultivator's magic weapon required a spirit array master to draw a powerful array pattern to increase its power. The body cleansing talismans, illumination talismans, fire lighting talismans, and so on that cultivators daily use were all drawn by spirit array masters. The Taoist robes worn by cultivators also had array patterns drawn by spirit array masters. Why was the spiritual array master the greatest and noblest profession? It was not only because of the strength of a spirit array master. The main reason was that cultivators couldn't live without a spirit array master. Without a spirit array master, life would be difficult. As the holy land of spiritual array masters, the spiritual array master temple was naturally filled with countless mysteries. Lin Feng took the space-time wormhole from ancient Taidong's city to Holy View City. This was a city that was relatively close to the desolate ancient forest. The name Holy View City was very interesting. It was said that it had the meaning of looking at the spiritual array master temple across the endless desolate ancient forest. It was already late at night when he arrived at Holy View City. Lin Feng planned to rest in Holy View City for the night before leaving tomorrow. Ya! Ya! Bibi woke up and ran out by itself, calling out with sleepy eyes. Looking at Bibi eating with relish, Lin Feng smiled and couldn't help rubbing Bibi's head. The night was bright and Lin Feng was sitting alone in the courtyard, admiring the moon and drinking wine. The central continent is the lair of the fire Qilin. I wonder where that guy ran off to now. Lin Feng shook his head slightly. He hadn't heard any news about the fire Qilin for a long time. Lin Feng wasn't too worried about the fire Qilin's safety. That fellow was very scheming, and it wouldn't be easy to scheme against it. Moreover, the fire Qilin's godly power was recovering. As its cultivation gradually recovered, there weren't many people on the Tianwu continent who could defeat it. After all, the fire Qilin was a 100% pure-blooded Qilin. It was one of the strongest divine beasts. What a little glutton! Lin Feng smiled at Bibi. Ya! The little guy giggled as it drank. In the end, half a jug of wine was drunk by Bibi in one gulp. The little guy's footsteps staggered, and his whole body reeked of alcohol. Obviously, he was drunk. In the end, he fell onto the stone table and fell into a deep sleep. Bibi had grown up a lot in this period of time, and wasn't as sleepy as before. This made Lin Feng very happy. However, the little guy was still too young and hadn't learned how to speak yet. 3 days later, Lin Feng arrived at the great desolation town. The town's name was mighty and domineering, but in reality, it was just an ordinary town outside the great desolation ancient forest. The great desolation town was very crowded with people coming and going. Lin Feng asked around and found out that these people were going to the Spiritual Array Master Temple to participate in the 3000 Prefectures Spiritual Array Master Temples competition. The outstanding ones would be heavily rewarded by the Spiritual Array Master Temple and have the opportunity to enter the sacred pagoda to cultivate. This was enough to make anyone go crazy. Many descendants of ancient powers also came. Those ancient powers' inheritances might be very powerful, but they had their own specializations. The ancient powers' inheritances in the field of spiritual arrays were far from being comparable to the Spiritual Array Master Temple. Therefore, in order to obtain the best inheritances, one had to go to the Spiritual Array Master Temple. Although the Spiritual Array Master Temple kept a low profile, it had deep relationships with many of the top powers in the Tianwu continent. Therefore, the power that the Spiritual Array Master Temple held was unimaginable. Bibi ran happily on the street. As it ran, it turned its head to look at Lin Feng behind it. It squeaked as if it was urging Lin Feng to hurry up and catch up. When it turned a corner on the street, Bibi bumped into a white-clothed woman. Bibi was dizzy from the collision and fell on the ground. The white-clothed woman turned her head and looked. When she saw Bibi, her eyes immediately curved into crescents. "What kind of little beast is this? It's actually so cute." The white-clothed woman stretched out her hand, wanting to hug Bibi, who was sitting on the ground. The little guy's eyes were sharp and its hands were fast. It disappeared with a whoosh and landed on Lin Feng's shoulder in the next instant. "Void travel? Is this little beast so amazing?" the purple-clothed woman next to the white-clothed woman said in shock. Of these two women, one had a graceful figure, while the other was tall and alluring. Her face was also extremely beautiful. They were both first-rate beauties. Now the two women were looking at Bibi without blinking. Chapter 1241. The little guy offended you just now. I apologize on behalf of the little guy. I hope you can forgive it. Lin Feng walked over and looked at the white-clothed woman. "Yeah. Bibi cried out, feeling wronged. "This little beast is really too cute." The two women ignored Lin Feng and looked at Bibi as if they wanted to snatch Bibi away. On the other hand, Bei Bei looked at the two women with vigilance. His large eyes were filled with vigilance. It was only now that the two women seemed to notice Lin Feng, their master. The white-clothed woman said, "Sir, where did you find this little beast?" "I got it by chance," Lin Feng said. "Then, do you want to part with it?" the purple-clothed woman said. "Impossible." Lin Feng shook his head and said indifferently, "Bibi is like family to me." Yeah. Bei Bei glared angrily at the purple-dressed woman. He waved his little paws and appeared to be fuming with anger. "Ah, little guy is angry. It's Big Sister's fault. Big Sister will apologize to you, okay? Don't be angry with Big Sister," the purple-clothed woman said with a smile. Bibi looked at Lin Feng and then at the purple-clothed woman before nodding. Seeing that Bibi was so understanding, the two women's love overflowed and they couldn't help but want to hug Bibi. However, Bibi was very repulsed by them. It made the two of them look heartbroken. Lin Feng said, "Other than me, this little guy is repulsed by everyone. It's mainly because it's still young and not used to interacting with strangers." The two women nodded. At this time, the white-clothed woman said, "How should I address you, sir?" "Lin Qing." Lin Feng casually said a name, then looked at the two women and asked, "How should I address you two fairies?" "Zhao Linger." "Hua Xianyu." The woman in white was called Zhao Linger. Her name and temperament were quite fitting, ethereal and otherworldly. The woman in the purple dress was called Hua Xianyu. She had an elegant temperament and a hint of charm. Especially her pair of phoenix eyes, she gave people a feeling of seduction. Sir, did you come to Desolation Town to participate in the finals of the Spirit Array Master Temple? Zhao Ling'er asked curiously. Lin Feng replied, I'm indeed going to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, but I'm not going to participate in the finals. During this period of time, many people went to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Some went to participate in the finals, while others went to watch the fun. At the same time, they also went to pay their respects to the mysterious Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Therefore, Lin Feng's words wouldn't arouse anyone's suspicions. Hua Xianyu asked, Have you found someone to team up with? Within the desolate ancient forest, danger lurked in every corner. Moving alone was incomparably terrifying. Only by forming a team would it be safer. Many people would find people to team up with in the great wilderness ancient forest. Lin Feng replied, I just came to Desolation Town and am alone, so I haven't found a team yet. Our team has more than 20 people, and their strength is not bad. We also have 2 or 3 elders who are at the level of ancient giants as escorts. Sir, why don't you join our team? Zhao Ling'er suggested. Yes, let's go to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters together. We can take care of each other, Hua Xianyu said. Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu were not bad. They probably saw that he was alone and didn't have any guards by his side, so they thought that he was a rogue cultivator. It would be difficult for such a rogue cultivator to form a powerful team, so they wanted to help him. Lin Feng said, Thank you, fairies. When will the team set off? Follow us and gather with the main team now. We'll probably set off soon, Zhao Ling'er said. Okay. Lin Feng nodded. In a restaurant, Lin Feng met Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu's companions. There were a total of 27 people. There were 7 young cultivators, 6 men and 1 woman. The rest were probably guards. Among them, there were 3 elders who were sitting in a private room, drinking tea and not coming out. The 3 old men were all ancient giants. However, the strongest among them was only at the 4th layer of the life and death realm, and couldn't be considered a top expert. Seeing Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu's arrival, the others stood up. A young man in blue looked at Lin Feng and frowned slightly, saying, Ling'er, who is this brother? This is Lin Qing. I just met Hua Xianyu not long ago. He is also going to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, so we invited him to come with us, Zhao Ling'er said. Then, she introduced the 6 men and 1 woman to Lin Feng. The young man in blue was called Zhang Hanxian. He was a prince of the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. The other 5 men were called Shenmao Bai, Lu Shige, Lu Lishui, Dan Guangqi, Zhang Zixiao, and Li Nizi. The woman was called Mu Shaowan. The 7 of them nodded at Lin Feng. Shenmao Bai asked, Brother Lin, are you also going to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters to participate in the 3000 Prefectures Spiritual Array Masters competition? The others also looked at Lin Feng. Obviously, if Lin Feng was also going to participate in the 3000 Prefectures Spiritual Array Masters competition, then they would make friends with him. This time, the 3000 prefectures were holding a Spiritual Array Master competition. Depending on the situation in each prefecture, there would be at least a dozen people, and at most 100 people. They would come to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters to participate in the competition. However, the Spiritual Array Masters who could participate in the competition were all outstanding talents of the younger generation. If they could perform well, they would be heavily nurtured by the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters in the future. Lin Feng said, I'm not going to participate in the 3000 Prefectures Spiritual Array Masters competition. When they heard Lin Feng's words, the 7 of them lost all interest in the battle. Shenmao Bai said, Then, Brother Lin, are you going to watch the show? Lin Feng said, If there's a show to watch, then there's no harm in watching it. Shenmao Bai didn't say anything else, and the others didn't have any intention of talking to Lin Feng. At this time, the 7 of them called Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu to the side. Shenmao Bai said, Ling'er, Xianyu, this person's background is unknown. I think we should let him leave. How can you say his background is unknown? I feel that he's quite a good person. He's righteous and not evil, Zhao Ling'er said. Lu Shige said. Linger, actually, Brother Mobai means that this person isn't a spiritual array master, and he doesn't even have a guard by his side. It's obvious that he's a lowly wandering cultivator. Bringing him along is like bringing a burden. It's better to get rid of him as soon as possible. Zhao Linger and Hua Xianyu frowned. Zhao Linger said, Is that what you all mean? Shen Maobai, Lu Shige, Lu Lishui, Dan Guangqi, Zhang Zixiao, Li Miezi, and Mu Shaowan all nodded. Hua Xianyu said unhappily, Linger and I invited him over. If there's any danger, we'll protect him. You don't have to worry. Shen Maobai smiled bitterly and said, Xianyu, don't be angry. We were just saying it casually. Since you and Linger brought him here, then he'll come with us. Chapter 1242. The group traveled through the desolation ancient forest in a beast carriage. Flying above the desolation ancient forest on a flying mount was too dangerous, as it was easy to be attacked by ferocious beasts. On the other hand, riding a beast carriage made them less of a target and safer. 3 of the ancient giants rode in a beast carriage, while the rest rode in a larger beast carriage. The reason they didn't ride separately was because they were gathered together. If there really was danger, they could take care of each other in time and wouldn't have to fight alone. Aya! Our carriage can only fit 9 people. Brother Lin, can you ride a horse with the guards? Zhang Hanxian looked at Lin Feng with a faint smile. Although these people had agreed to let Lin Feng follow them to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, it was obvious that they didn't accept Lin Feng. In their eyes, Lin Feng was destined to be someone from a different world from them. We can still make room if we squeeze a little, Zhao Linger said. Thank you for your kindness, Miss Linger, but there's no need to trouble yourself. I still prefer to ride a horse. Lin Feng nodded and jumped onto a ferocious horse. These dark yellow horses had the blood of demonic beasts flowing in their veins. They weren't ordinary horses, but a type of demonic horse. They could travel tens of thousands of miles in a day, and could easily kick a martial king to death. When the group set out, Lin Feng and a few other cultivators riding dark yellow horses were at the back of the group. They quickly headed into the desolation ancient forest. Among the 20 or so guards, only a few came from the families of the young masters and young ladies. The rest were rogue cultivators who had joined the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. Most of Zhao Linger's group were disciples of the various great families of the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. The Great Dragon Immortal Dynasty was equivalent to a quasi-archaic force, and its strength was still very tyrannical. The top families of the Great Dragon Immortal Dynasty were also quite strong. Therefore, it was normal for them to be able to cultivate some talented young spirit array masters. A guard named Niu Dajiang smiled at Lin Feng and said, Little brother, you're not going to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters just to watch the show, right? Lin Feng smiled and said, I'm going to the Spirit Array Master Temple to look for someone. Niu Dajiang immediately cried out in alarm. Little brother, do you have relatives working in the Spiritual Array Master Temple? Lin Feng replied, We can't be considered relatives, but we are still somewhat related. Niu Dajiang said, Little brother, you must be modest. Once you find your relatives, if you can stay in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters as a guard or something, then you will have a meteoric rise. Niu Dajiang and the other guards all looked at Lin Feng with envy. They were all loose cultivators, and for the sake of survival, they would seek refuge under other powers. However, there were many times when they had to risk their lives. For example, escorting this group of young masters and young ladies through the desolate ancient forest was filled with danger. If they were unlucky, they might even lose their lives here. However, since they had been paid by their boss, they also had a contract and agreement. They had to follow their boss's orders, no matter how dangerous it was. If Lin Feng could become a guard in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, then he wouldn't be in any danger. Furthermore, what kind of place was the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters? Not just anyone could become a guard in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, but not just anyone was qualified to do odd jobs in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Lin Feng replied, I can't say that I'll have a meteoric rise. The world is difficult, and I only hope that my future will be smooth sailing. Yes, the world is difficult. The guards nodded. Which family do you belong to? Lin Feng asked. Niu Dajiang replied. The 3 overlords and the 6 guards at the front belong to the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty's aristocratic families. The rest belong to the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty's External Affairs Department. Every year, they receive 120 top-grade spirit stones from the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. We've already served the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty for more than 100 years. In that case, you can be considered senior guards. The Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty should reward you with a residence or territory, right? I've heard that many ancient immortal dynasties give out such rewards in order to recruit experts. Ordinary cultivators, especially itinerant cultivators, worked hard all their lives for nothing more than to earn a piece of property for their retirement, or for their loved ones. Since Niu Dajiang and the others were the subordinates of the previous lieutenant, they were no longer employed by the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. The situation that Niu Dajiang and the others encountered naturally made them very angry, but as rogue cultivators, they felt even more helpless. Perhaps this was the sorrow of rogue cultivators when faced with a powerful force. Lin Feng said, When we reach the temple city, you can go to the Spirit Formation Master Temple to find me. I'll introduce you to a job. Haha, then we'll have to thank Brother Lin. Niu Dajiang and the others laughed. Evidently, they didn't take Lin Feng's words to heart. After all, they thought that Lin Feng was going to rely on someone else. Their own futures weren't clear. How could they arrange jobs for a dozen or so people? Niu Dajiang and the others only thought that Lin Feng was young and liked to brag, so they didn't take it to heart. Look at that Lin Feng! He's actually chatting so happily with a group of guards. What a boorish person! Lu Lishui couldn't help but pout. Zhao Linger said unhappily, Brother Lu, talking about people behind their backs isn't very good. It's very ungentlemanly. Lu Lishui's expression sank, and he said, Sister Linger, you're going overboard. Brother, don't say that. Lu Shige glared at Lu Lishui. He was pursuing Zhao Linger, so he naturally didn't want Zhao Linger and Lu Lishui to be unhappy. If Zhao Linger developed feelings of disgust towards him because of Lu Lishui, then wouldn't he be wronged? Lu Lishui's expression was gloomy, and he didn't say anything else. Zhang Hanxian smiled and tried to smooth things over. We've been friends for many years. There's no need to harm our friendship over an outsider. Zhao Linger nodded and didn't say anything else. The group walked for 10 days in the forest. Although they were attacked by a few fierce beasts, with the help of the 3 ancient giants, they didn't encounter any real danger. On the 13th day in the forest, the group ran into trouble. The densely packed forest monsters surrounded them. These forest monsters were at least 30 to 40 meters tall, and some of them were even over 100 meters tall. The forest monsters were known for their ferocity, so when they saw these forest monsters, many people paled in fright. Chapter 1243. Quick, let's break out of the encirclement before the monsters surround us, said an ancient powerhouse. He was a great elder from Zhao Linger's family. He had personally escorted Zhao Linger here. It was obvious that the Zhao family attached great importance to Zhao Linger. They were worried that something would happen to her, which was why they had sent such a powerhouse to protect her. The others came back to their senses, and quickly jumped down from the beast carriage. They increased their speed to the maximum and rushed into the distance. Roar, roar, roar! The forest monsters' roars shook the sky. These monsters were invulnerable and extremely strong. Once they caught up with them, it would be extremely dangerous. Brother Lin, stay close to us. Don't get lost, said Niu Dajiang. Don't worry. Lin Feng took out a mid-tier Dao artifact battle spear and held it in his hand. It wouldn't attract too much attention. Roar, roar, roar! Roars could be heard as more than a dozen forest monsters rushed towards them. A gigantic monster of the forest swung its gigantic stone hammer at Lin Feng. Clang! Lin Feng was holding his battle spear and his spear collided with the stone hammer of the gigantic monster. The gigantic monster was pushed back. "Brother Lin, not bad. Your cultivation is not weak," said Niu Dajiang. Niu Dajiang said in shock. "I was just lucky," said Lin Feng with a smile. The group of people worked together and fought against the forest monsters. Fortunately, although the forest monsters were strong, they were slow and couldn't completely surround the group of people. Therefore, no one in Lin Feng's group had died. Only 4 of the guards had been slightly injured. They had managed to escape from the encirclement of the gigantic monsters of the forest. They then quickly moved towards the depths of the forest. Behind them, numerous gigantic monsters were chasing them. The ground was shaking violently. They increased their speed and got rid of the forest monsters. Then, they entered a valley. After a tough battle, everyone sat on the ground and rested. Roar! Suddenly, a roar was heard. Then, the earth shook and the mountains shook. The huge mountain behind them instantly turned into a mountain demon. The mountain demon emitted a terrifying aura as it swung its huge palm towards them. Zhang Hanxian, Shenhua Bai, and the others were usually studying spirit formations. They had never experienced such a dangerous situation. Now that they saw how terrifying the mountain demon was, they were scared silly. Zhao Linger's elder was called Zhao Qiwu. He leaped up and shouted, "Brother Zhang, Brother Lu, protect them and leave. I will hold off this mountain demon for now." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Qiwu was already engaged in a fierce battle with the mountain demon. The other 2 Hegemon-level experts and many guards escorted everyone away quickly. Only after fleeing for more than 30 miles did they finally stop. Zhao Linger paced back and forth anxiously. She was obviously worried about her elder. It didn't take long for Zhao Qiwu to fly over, but as soon as he landed, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale. Zhao Qiwu had suffered heavy injuries from the battle with the mountain demon. "Seventh Grandpa, how are you?" Zhao Linger quickly supported Zhao Qiwu. After Zhao Qiwu took a pill, his face regained some color. He said in a low voice, "I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me." After a short pause, Zhao Qiwu continued, "We can't stay here for long. Let's go." The group of people did not dare to linger and quickly left. The primitive forest was much more dangerous than they had imagined. If it were any other time, it might not have been so dangerous. Many powerful savage beasts would not have come out. However, during this period of time, many young cultivators with powerful bloodlines had entered the desolate ancient forest and attracted the attention of the terrifying beasts in the desolate ancient forest. The savage beasts of the primitive forest might not have cared about the bloodlines of ordinary cultivators. However, the powerful bloodlines of these young cultivators, especially those with special bloodlines, were something that the savage beasts would want to devour. These savage beasts could continuously devour powerful bloodlines to increase the power of their own bloodlines. Roar! A roar resounded through the clouds in the distance. A savage beast shrouded in black flames attacked hundreds of cultivators. That savage beast was too terrifying. With a swipe of its claws, more than 10 powerful cultivators were killed. Black Flame Draconic Lion! Let's leave quickly. If that black flame draconic lion sees us, we'll die. That creature can easily kill even high-level life and death realm experts. The cultivator with the surname Zhang said solemnly. Then let's leave quickly. Lu Lishui hurriedly shouted. He didn't want to stay here for a moment longer. He was already scared out of his wits. The group of people rushed into the distance. The black flame draconic lion was extremely ferocious. Only a few of the hundreds of cultivators were lucky enough to escape. The rest were killed. The great desolation ancient forest was too dangerous. When night fell, everyone hid in a valley to rest. Zhao Qiwu seized the time to heal his injuries. The atmosphere was stifling. Niu Dejiang and the others were also very afraid, but they didn't show their inner feelings. Since they were guards, they knew that a day like this might come when they had to face death. However, Zhang Hanxian, Shenhua Bai, Lu Lishui, and the other disciples of aristocratic families didn't hide their emotions. Their faces were as pale as paper. The female cultivator called Mu Shaoan was so scared that she started crying. The rest of the people were also trembling. Zhao Linger didn't have time to be afraid. She was guarding Zhao Qiwu, worrying about her seventh grandfather. Hua Xianyu was resting on a tree with a pale face. It was obvious that she had also suffered a great shock. Many disciples of aristocratic families had been protected by their families since they were young. They didn't lack anything, so they didn't experience many hardships. When faced with such a dangerous situation, they would naturally be terrified. Lin Feng was completely different from them. Lin Feng came from a small family, so he had to obtain everything he needed for cultivation. Therefore, Lin Feng went deep into dangerous places and experienced danger after danger. He was already used to life and death. Therefore, no matter how dangerous the situation was, he could still face it calmly. "Brother, you're good. I don't think the three ancient giants are as calm as you," Yo Dajiang said with a wry smile. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Life and death are up to fate. Wealth and honor are up to the heavens. There's no use in worrying. What's going to come will come sooner or later." Yo Dajiang gave him a thumbs up and said, "I didn't expect Brother Lin to see things so clearly. I'm impressed." Lin Feng smiled and didn't say anything else. He leaned on the tree and rested. In the middle of the night, the earth shook violently, and everyone was awakened with a start. "What's that?" Mu Shaoan pointed to the sky. 2 moons were floating in the air. Looking closely, those weren't moons at all. It was clearly an incomparably huge python. When the python raised its head, it was 3,000 to 4,000 meters tall. The 2 bright moons were the python's cold eyes. The entire python was at least 20,000 meters long. "The primordial anaconda is dead for sure now." The 2 ancient giants who weren't injured trembled in fear when they saw the python. Zhao Qiwu, who was healing himself, was also awakened. He looked at the python in shock. Zhao Qiwu coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of blood. The others were so scared that they fell to the ground. The great desolate python opened its bloody mouth, as if it wanted to devour everyone hiding in the valley. At that moment, Lin Feng stood up. His cold eyes looked at the great desolate python. The python also saw Lin Feng. They looked at each other from a few thousand meters away. In the end, the python's killing intent gradually subsided. Rumble, the python's huge body swam through the forest, circling around the valley where Lin Feng and the others were. It quickly disappeared into the distance. Chapter 1244. Did we get out of danger? Zhang Hanxian and the others heaved a sigh of relief, looking as if they had just survived a disaster. They had almost been scared to death just now. That was a great desolate python. If it had attacked them, who would have been able to survive? If that had happened, everyone would have died without a burial place. What's going on? Why did the great desolate python leave? The 3 ancient giants looked at each other in dismay. They didn't know what had happened either. Could it have been because the great desolate python hadn't noticed them? But that shouldn't have been the case. The great desolate python had clearly been watching them. But in the end, the great desolate python had left. Could it have been because a terrifying creature had appeared in this area that even the great desolate python was afraid of? Was that why the great desolate python had left? Perhaps this was the only explanation for why the great desolate python had left. When they thought about the possibility that there was a creature even more terrifying than the great desolate python, the 3 ancient powerhouses felt their hearts palpitate. But now, they didn't dare to move around casually. If they moved around at night, the danger they would face would increase exponentially. Amidst their worries, the night passed peacefully. The next morning, Lin Feng stretched and stood up. Niu Dajiang smiled bitterly. "Brother Lin, you're really magnanimous. Last night was such a dangerous situation, but you were still able to sleep." Lin Feng replied. "There's no point in worrying about that. Even if the sky falls, there'll be someone taller to hold it up. Lin Gongzi is really magnanimous," Zhao Linger said as she walked over. Lin Feng smiled and asked, "How's Elder Zhao's body?" Zhao Linge replied. Fortunately, his injuries have stabilized. He should be fine after recuperating for a while. Lin Feng nodded. The group continued forward, and they didn't encounter any powerful beasts. 7 days later, the group walked out of the forest and saw an ancient city on the horizon. Temple City! We're here! Many people cried out in surprise. Cultivators continued to pass through the desolate ancient forest and arrive at the Temple City. The pitch-black walls of Temple City reflected a cold aura. Powerful guards guarded the city gates, and foreign cultivators all lined up in an orderly manner to enter Temple City. This was the city where the Spirit Array Master Temple was located, and it was rare to see such a lively scene. Most of the time, Temple City was an extremely quiet ancient city, with few people on the streets. This was because Spirit Array Masters spent most of their time studying spirit arrays, so who would be wandering around the streets? However, this period of time was clearly different. As the Spirit Array Master competition of the 3,000 prefectures was about to begin, cultivators from the 3,000 prefectures had arrived, and Temple City had become extraordinarily lively. Lin Feng and the others entered Temple City. Lin Feng said, Miss Linger, Miss Qianyu, let's part ways here. Maybe we'll meet again when the competition starts. Hua Qianyu smiled and said, When the time comes, are you going to watch me and Linger compete? Don't worry, we'll definitely achieve good results and strive to stay in the Spirit Array Master Temple. Lin Feng said, When the time comes, I'll go and see you. I believe that you'll all achieve good results. Hua Qianyu smiled and said, Thank you for your kind words. Zhao Linge said, Lin Dongzi, I'm sure we'll meet again. Lin Feng nodded, and Zhao Linger and Hua Qianyu walked towards the group. Niu Dajiang stayed behind and cupped his fists and said, Brother Lin, let's part ways here. After this time, I don't know if we'll meet again. I hope that you'll be able to find your family and have a bright future ahead of you. Lin Feng took out a jade tablet and said, Before I said that I'd help you find jobs, so I won't go back on my word. Take this jade tablet and bring your brothers to the Spirit Array Master Temple to find me. Someone will bring you to see me, and I'll make the necessary arrangements for you. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng stuffed the jade tablet into Niu Dajiang's hands and then walked towards the Spirit Array Master Temple. Niu Dajiang held the jade tablet and was slightly stunned. He wanted to return the jade tablet to Lin Feng, but he realized that Lin Feng's figure had been blocked by the crowd, and he could no longer see where Lin Feng was. Niu Dajiang looked at the jade tablet in his hand and saw that it had the shape of an ancient pagoda drawn on it. There were no words on the jade tablet, and Niu Dajiang was a bit suspicious. However, he didn't think too much about it and just assumed that it was Lin Feng's keepsake. At that moment, Niu Dajiang heard his companions call him over from afar, so he put away the jade tablet and hurried towards the group. The Spirit Array Master Temple was located in the central region of the Temple City. There were many palaces there, and the temple was surrounded by a huge courtyard. There were powerful restrictions all around, and if anyone wanted to climb over the walls, they would definitely die under the attack of the restrictions. There were more than 20 guards guarding the entrance. Many people stood in the distance and looked in the direction of the Spirit Array Master Temple. When they saw someone enter the Spirit Array Master Temple, their eyes were filled with envy. Being able to enter the Spirit Array Master Temple to cultivate was something that countless Spirit Array Masters dreamed of. When Lin Feng arrived at the entrance of the Spirit Array Master Temple, he was stopped. The Spirit Array Master Temple is not to be casually entered, the guard commander said. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a talisman fell into the guard commander's hand. This was a divine sense imprint that the 4 ancestors had personally imprinted, inviting Lin Feng to the Spirit Array Master Temple. It was given to Lin Feng by Murong Baichuan. The guard commander checked it with his divine sense, and his expression suddenly shook. He handed the talisman to Lin Feng with both hands, then bowed to Lin Feng and said, So it's Great Elder Lin Feng. Please follow me, Great Elder. This subordinate will bring Great Elder to see the Vice Temple Master. Lin Feng nodded. After Lin Feng and the guard commander entered, the guards were abnormally shocked and began to discuss. Who was that young man just now? How could he make their family treat him so carefully? The surrounding cultivators who were watching the show were even more shocked. The guard commander of the Spirit Array Master Temple was an extraordinary figure. For such a great figure to be so respectful to that young cultivator, what kind of identity did that young cultivator have? Under the lead of the guard, Lin Feng arrived in a majestic and magnificent living room. At this moment, there were 4 people sitting in the living room. 2 of them were men and 2 were women. Obviously, for these people to be able to sit in the living room, their status should be extremely high. Guard Commander Nalen, this is the living room where the Great Elder rests. Not just anyone can be brought in. You have worked in the Spirit Array Master Temple for so many years, don't you know this little rule? A thin middle-aged cultivator with a gloomy gaze glanced at Lin Feng and couldn't help but reveal a look of contempt, then said in an indifferent voice. Chapter 1245. This head guard was called Nalen Yuanfang. He had already held the position of head guard in the Temple of Spirit Array Masters for more than 300 years. Regarding the Temple of Spirit Array Masters, the Great Elder level Spirit Array Masters basically knew all of them. The only one he hadn't seen before was Lin Feng. Nalen Yuanfang had been able to become the guard captain for a reason. He had always been cautious and followed the principles of the temple. Low-key, enthusiastic, and polite. It was this 6-word policy that allowed him to slowly climb from an ordinary guard to the position of head guard of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. When Nalen Yuanfang heard the Great Elder's question, he smiled and said, "Great Elder Zhuge, this is Great Elder Lin Feng, so he is qualified to be in the guest hall." Lin Feng? Hearing this name, everyone's spirits were lifted. Lin Feng's name could be said to have shaken the 3,000 prefectures. He had stepped on Murong Tianshan and ascended to the heaven's proud arena. His talent was unparalleled. Moreover, he had received the inheritance of a heavenly teacher. It was said that the temple's 4 ancestors wanted to train Lin Feng to be their successor. One had to know that Lin Feng was only 26 years old. They thought too highly of Lin Feng. Who knew how many higher-ups of the temple were envious of him? "Am I qualified to sit here now?" Lin Feng smiled indifferently and looked at the skinny and gloomy Great Elder. The Great Elder smiled and said, "Since you are also a Great Elder of the temple, you are naturally qualified to sit here. Great Elder Lin, let me introduce you. This is Great Elder Zhuge Jian, this is Great Elder Tang Jiexing, this is Great Elder Shui Saixia, and this is Great Elder Dou Yun." Nalen Yuanfang introduced 4 people to Lin Feng. The skinny and sinister-looking Great Elder was Zhuge Jian. The other middle-aged man was none other than Grand Elder Tang Jiexing. The beautiful woman in a blue dress was Great Elder Shui Saixia. The other old woman was Great Elder Dou Yun. "Haha, so this is Great Elder Lin Feng. We've heard so much about you." Tang Jiexing stood up and walked towards Lin Feng with a smile on his face. Shui Kaixia smiled charmingly and said, "You're really a young hero. I've heard of Great Elder Lin's name a long time ago, but I've never had the chance to meet you." Great Elder Dou Yun smiled and said, "Great Elder Lin is young and promising, and I've been acquainted with you for a long time. Today, I've finally met you." Tang Jiexing, Shui Saixia, and Dou Yun, the 3 Great Elders, were obviously good at dealing with people. On the other hand, Zhuge Jian sat in his seat without moving an inch. Lin Feng didn't care about this person's attitude towards him. As far as he was concerned, Zhuge Jian was just a passing traveler. He cupped his fists towards Tang Jiexing, Shui Kaixia, and Dou Yun and said, "Fellow Taoists, you're too kind. I'm really ashamed. This is my first time in the Temple of Spirit Array Masters, so I'm unfamiliar with everything here. In the future, I'll need your help in many areas." When Tang Jiexing, Shui Kaixia, and Dou Yun saw how humble Lin Feng was and how polite he was to them, they felt extremely proud of him. This face was supposed to be given to each other. "You're giving me face. I'm giving you face." Although Lin Feng was young, he had a deep understanding of how to conduct himself. After the 4 of them sat down, Tang Jiexing said, "I heard that fellow Taoist Lin was personally invited by the 4 ancestors?" Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, I came because the four ancestors invited me, said Lin Feng. Does fellow Taoist Lin already know about that matter? Shui Kai-xia asked with a smile. Lin Feng looked puzzled and said, May I know what fellow Taoist Shui is talking about? Shui Kai-xia smiled and said, I heard about it from Vice Temple Master Murong yesterday. It's said that the four ancestors have already issued an order for fellow Taoist Lin to be the chief examiner for this year's competition. Oh? There's such a thing? Lin Feng was shocked. Do Yun nodded and said, It's definitely true. I've also heard about it. We must congratulate fellow Taoist Lin. To Lin Feng, this was indeed something worth celebrating. All the geniuses of the 3,000 prefectures would be gathered in this competition. Lin Feng was the chief examiner, so it was obvious that the four ancestors wanted Lin Feng to nurture his own people. This signal was too obvious. The four ancestors wanted to nurture Lin Feng as their successor, which was why they wanted Lin Feng to nurture his own people so early on. In the future, when Lin Feng truly took over the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, he would have a group of followers, so he wouldn't be stripped of his authority. Tang Jiexing, Shui Kai-xia, and Do Yun were so enthusiastic about Lin Feng. It was obvious that they also wanted to board Lin Feng's ship, which was about to sail. Haha! The order hasn't been issued yet, so don't spread false rumors here. I believe that the four ancestors will make a careful decision. Among the four successors, 2 are already very young. How can the fourth successor still be a youngster? They will definitely find someone steady to take on such a great responsibility, Zhuge Jian said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The Temple of Spiritual Array Masters didn't have just one successor, but 4. For example, the 4 ancestors of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. They each had a part of the authority. They would also supervise each other. This was to prevent the authority from being too concentrated. Before Lin Feng had arrived, the 4 ancestors had already decided on 3 heirs. It was just that so many years had passed, and the 4 ancestors had been bitterly searching for a 4th successor. However, the 4 ancestors had never been able to find a successor that satisfied them, until Lin Feng appeared. But there were also many people eyeing this position. Lin Feng would naturally be hated by some people who were eyeing this position. This Zhuge Jian had always been eccentric, and Lin Feng guessed that Zhuge Jian was likely to be involved in this matter. Hearing that the 4 ancestors wanted to set him as the 4th successor to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, Zhuge Jian's heart was filled with jealousy, so he targeted him like this. Tang Jiexing wanted to refute, but Lin Feng shook his head, indicating that he shouldn't lower himself to the same level as this person. Even if you don't speak, you still think that my words are reasonable, right? Zhuge Jian said with a smug look. There were also people supporting Zhuge Jian behind him, and they were currently working on it. Therefore, it was still unknown who would become the 4th successor in the end. If the people behind Zhuge Jian were to succeed, Lin Feng would be removed from the position of head examiner, and it was entirely possible for Zhuge Jian to be the head examiner this time. Fellow Taoist Lin doesn't lower himself to your level, but you're pushing your luck? Tang Jiexing couldn't help but sneer. Zhuge Jian sneered. Tang Jiexing, don't be the first to jump out. If you find out that you've boarded the wrong ship, you'll cry when the time comes. Lin Feng frowned slightly. This Zhuge Jian's words were too unpleasant. Although he was mocking Tang Jiexing, everyone knew that Zhuge Jian was actually targeting him. P.S. Today's 6th update. I'm going out to exercise tonight. The 7th update will come out around 11 o'clock. Please recommend me. Please reward me. Chapter 1246. Tang Jiexing was also a great elder, and his status wasn't any lower than Zhuge Jian's. Hearing Zhuge Jian's sarcastic words, Tang Jiexing's face darkened, and he said in a deep voice, Zhuge Jian, are you threatening me? Do you know what kind of crime it is to threaten a great elder of the temple? Zhuge Jian smiled and said, Isn't Great Elder Tang a little too sensitive? We're just having a normal conversation, yet you think I'm threatening you? If Great Elder Tang wants to slander me, it won't be so easy. Zhuge Jian's character was gloomy, and he was good at sophistry. Tang Jiexing was left speechless by his rebuttal. Lin Feng's face darkened even more. Zhuge Jian had successfully provoked Lin Feng's anger. He hadn't lowered himself to Zhuge Jian's level before, but did Zhuge Jian really think he was easy to bully because he was young? Thinking of this, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with coldness. He looked at Zhuge Jian and said indifferently, "A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. We all know what Great Elder Zhuge is thinking. There's no need to mock and ridicule him. This will only make others look down on Great Elder Zhuge." Zhuge Jian said coldly, "You really have no manners. How long has it been since you joined the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters and became a Great Elder? You dare to be so impudent in front of this Great Elder?" Lin Feng said indifferently, "Put away your face. The Temple of Spiritual Array Masters isn't a place where seniority is decided. In this place, the stronger one is, the more authority they have." Zhuge Jian's lips curled into a cold smile as he said, "If that's the case, Great Elder Lin, do you think you are very strong? I wouldn't dare say that I'm very strong, but I have no problem suppressing Great Elder Zhuge." Lin Feng flicked his sleeves and said, "Do you know why the 4 great ancestors chose me and not you? It's because I'm stronger than you, younger than you, and more talented than you. Great Elder Zhuge is inferior to me in every aspect, yet he still wants to compete with me for the position of successor. Isn't he overestimating himself? I see that you're a Great Elder of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. If you apologize to Great Elder Tang now, I'll spare you. But if you don't know your place, today's matter won't end so easily." Tang Jiexing, Shui Saixia, and Dou Yun were all very surprised. They hadn't expected Lin Feng to be so domineering. A moment before, when they saw Lin Feng swallow his anger, they thought that Lin Feng had a weak personality. But now that they saw how domineering Lin Feng was, they realized that Lin Feng hadn't bothered with Zhuge Jian because he was considering the big picture. After all, it wouldn't be good for the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters to have a conflict with the Great Elders of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. But with Zhuge Jian's continuous provocations, Lin Feng showed his domineering side and actually made Zhuge Jian apologize to Tang Jiexing. In fact, apologizing to Tang Jiexing was equivalent to bowing down to Lin Feng and admitting his mistake. Everyone was well aware of this. If he really apologized, Zhuge Jian would lose all his face. When Zhuge Jian heard Lin Feng's words, his face became gloomy. He sneered and said, "Today, I'd like to experience Great Elder Lin's methods." As soon as he said that, Zhuge Jian stepped forward, and the runes on his body twisted. With Zhuge Jian as the center, the dense array patterns spread out in all directions. Tang Jiexing said, "Great Elder Lin, let me deal with Zhuge Jian." Obviously, Tang Jiexing was worried that Lin Feng would be at a disadvantage. They were all great elders of the Temple of Spirit Array Masters, but there was a huge gap between them. Some great elders were at the level of Earth rank Spirit Array Masters, and some great elders were at the level of Heaven rank Spirit Array Masters. And Zhuge Jian was obviously a Heaven rank Spirit Array Master, and among the more than 700 great elders of the Temple of Spirit Array Masters, he was ranked at the top. It was true that Lin Feng had obtained the inheritance of the Celestial Master Path, and Lin Feng's future was limitless. But Lin Feng was too young after all. No matter how good his talent was, if he didn't have enough time to cultivate, it would naturally be difficult to raise his level as a Spirit Array Master. Therefore, Tang Jiexing wanted to replace Lin Feng to deal with Zhuge Jian. "Fellow Taoist Tang, you don't have to worry. It's not difficult to deal with a small character like Great Elder Zhuge." Seeing that Tang Jiexing was about to make a move, Lin Feng said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist Tang, listen to fellow Taoist Lin. Don't interfere in this matter." Shui Saixia saw Lin Feng's confident look and said aloud. Tang Jiexing nodded and took 3 steps back. "You don't have much real talent, but you've learned a lot of bragging skills. Today I, the Great Elder, will teach you a good lesson and let you know that there is always someone better than you." Zhuge Jian's expression was indifferent as he stepped forward. He looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, "The formation pattern that I condensed is called the 9 Extreme Heavenly Suppression Pattern. Kneel in front of me and repent for your stupidity just now. As soon as he finished speaking, dense formation patterns enveloped Lin Feng. Lines of formation runes twisted in the void. All of Lin Feng's escape routes were blocked. Then, those deployment marks moved towards Lin Feng and oppressed him. They wanted to make Lin Feng kneel on the ground. Tang Jiexing, Shui Caixia, and Dou Yun, the three great elders, looked at Lin Feng with worry. Although Lin Feng was very confident just now. However, Shuge Jian's attainments in the field of array formation were indeed very profound. Now, he had even used his ultimate move, the 9 extreme heavenly suppression pattern. Tang Jiexing, Shui Caixia, and Dou Yun were naturally worried about Lin Feng. After all, Lin Feng was too young. You dare to show off your insignificant skills in front of me? Lin Feng sneered, raised his right hand, and chopped down. Puff! Lin Feng's attack instantly tore apart the dense formation patterns. Fellow Taoist Lin is actually so powerful? Tang Jiexing, Shui Caixia, and Dou Yun were shocked when they saw Lin Feng instantly break Shuge Jian's 9 extreme heavenly suppression pattern. They clearly knew how powerful Shuge Jian's 9 extreme heavenly suppression pattern was. Even if the three of them attacked together, they wouldn't dare say that they could block the 9 extreme heavenly suppression pattern's attack, let alone break it. However, such a powerful spiritual array had been broken by Lin Feng in an instant. Just how powerful was Lin Feng as a spirit array master? Zhuge Jian's expression changed when he saw that his formation pattern was broken, and he quickly retreated. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent as he stepped forward and sneered. Didn't you just say that you wanted me to kneel on the ground and repent? I think that's a pretty good idea. Zhuge Jian, kneel! As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng's right hand, which was surrounded by runes, pressed down. Zhuge Jian wanted to dodge, but he couldn't. He could only sweep his fist over, hoping to break Lin Feng's formation pattern. The two sides collided, and the formation pattern on Lin Feng's hand instantly wrapped around Zhuge Jian. Puff! Zhuge Jian couldn't resist the formation pattern's powerful pressure. His legs went soft, and he directly knelt in front of Lin Feng. Chapter 1247. No! This is absolutely impossible! This can't be real! Zhuge Jian roared like a madman. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him, nor could he accept what was happening in front of him. How could the four ancestors appoint him as the fourth successor after suffering such humiliation and losing their prestige? Whoosh! 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 Many spirit array masters from the temple heard the commotion and quickly rushed over. Many of them were Grand Elder level spirit array masters. Now that they saw Zhuge Jian kneeling on the ground, they were all extremely shocked. One of the Grand Elders looked at Nalin Yuanfang and asked, Captain Nalin, what happened? Sir, Grand Elder Lin and Grand Elder Zhuge just now fought. Grand Elder Zhuge was defeated and was suppressed by Grand Elder Lin, Nalin Yuanfang said. Grand Elder Lin? Which Grand Elder Lin? Everyone was puzzled. Nalin Yuanfang said, He is Grand Elder Lin Feng. Nalin Yuanfang's words were like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. When they heard the name, Lin Feng, many people were shocked and moved. They had heard this name too many times during this period of time. It wasn't just because Lin Feng had defeated Heavenly God Murong and ascended to the Prodigy Arena. Most importantly, it was because Lin Feng was the successor of the Celestial Master Path. In addition, the Temple of Spirit Array Masters had been spreading rumors that the four ancestors were planning to nurture Lin Feng as the fourth successor. Lin Feng's name was like thunder to the ears of the Temple of Spirit Array Masters. But in reality, many people didn't take Lin Feng seriously before this. Talent didn't equate to strength. After all, Lin Feng was too young. He was probably only an Earth-rank Spirit Array Master. But at that moment, when they saw Zhuge Jian kneel down in front of Lin Feng, everybody knew that they were wrong. Zhuge Jian was one of the top Grand Elders even among the 700 or so Grand Elders. His ability was inferior to Lin Feng's. It was obvious how terrifying Lin Feng was. With his hands behind his back, Lin Feng looked at Zhuge Jian coldly and said, Zhuge Jian, let me ask you, do you submit? Are you still not convinced? Zhuge Jian looked at Lin Feng with resentment. He knew that his future hope of being in charge of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters had been completely extinguished. He hated Lin Feng to the core. Zhuge Jian said bitterly, Lin Feng, you brat, you humiliated me today. I, Zhuge Jian, will remember this enmity. In this life, you and I cannot exist under the same sky. Oh? Lin Feng looked at Zhuge Jian coldly. Back then, you said that you wanted me to kneel on the ground and repent, but unfortunately, you didn't have the ability to do so. Now that you are kneeling before me, you should repent for your previous actions instead of continuing to anger me. Do you really think that I won't dare to cripple you? Impudent! At this moment, a cold shout rang out. Then, a skinny old man walked over. It's Deputy Sun Yongchang. He's here. Many spiritual array masters were shocked and hurriedly made way for the Deputy Sun Yongchang. There were a total of 12 Deputy Temple Masters in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. These 12 Deputy Temple Masters all held great power. Sun Yongchang was one of them. These Deputy Temple Masters were all powerhouses of the older generation, so they couldn't inherit the positions of the four ancestors. Moreover, with the retirement of the four ancestors, these Deputy Temple Masters had to retire as well. There would be 4 new Deputy Temple Masters appointed by the new Deputy Temple Masters. The purpose was to prevent these Deputy Temple Masters from the older generation from not handing over the power in their hands. The Temple of Spiritual Array Masters was very clear about the handover of power. There would be no old rule. The so-called old rule referred to those of the older generation who retired but didn't hand over the power in their hands and still secretly manipulated many things. This is Deputy Sun Yongchang. He is one of the 3 Deputy Temple Masters who support Zhuge Jian. Tang Jiesheng whispered to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. At this moment, Sun Yongchang walked in with a gloomy expression. Lin Feng, do you know your crime? Sun Yongchang asked coldly. Lin Feng asked indifferently. What crime have I committed? Sun Yongchang said coldly. Publicly humiliating the great elder of the temple is a serious crime. Lin Feng said indifferently. It seems that Deputy Temple Master Sun's eyes are blurred. This Zhuge Jian thought that I was young and easy to bully, so he wanted to make me kneel on the ground. However, he wasn't strong enough and was suppressed by me. Actually, as a junior, I shouldn't blame Deputy Temple Master Sunday. After all, he has worked hard for the temple for so many years. However, I think that for the prosperity of the temple, it's time for Deputy Temple Master Sun to give up his position. Lin Feng's words caused an uproar in the surroundings. Many people hadn't expected Lin Feng to be so audacious as to ask a Deputy Temple Master to give up his position. If someone else had said that, I would have thought that they were arrogant and despotic. However, Lin Feng's words are domineering because he has the strength to back it up. Many people were discussing in low voices. Many of them were even thinking of making friends with Lin Feng. If they could get on Lin Feng's ship, their status in the temple would definitely rise. Ignorant brat, you're actually so arrogant and despotic. If the temple is handed over to you, you'll definitely become a source of disaster, shouted Sun Yongchang angrily. Lin Feng said, Deputy Temple Master, you're wrong. The temple can only truly flourish if it's handed over to me. I'm 26 years old this year, but apart from the 4 ancestors, there shouldn't be anyone on the continent stronger than me. The temple needs a guide, and I'm that guide. After saying that, Lin Feng walked towards Sun Yongchang step by step. Dense formation runes condensed in the void and pressed down on Sun Yongchang. Heavens! Is Great Elder Lin going to fight with Deputy Temple Master Sun Yongchang? Many people were shocked. Lin Feng had just suppressed Zhuge Jian. Was he going to suppress Sun Yongchang now? Lin Feng, you brat, you're too arrogant. Today, I'll teach you a lesson. Sun Yongchang's expression was gloomy. Dense runes appeared on his palm and he attacked Lin Feng. It was a battle between spiritual formation masters. It was a battle to see whose spiritual formation techniques were stronger. Bang! Both sides collided. Thump, 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 the runes on Sun Yongchang's palm were instantly broken, and he was forced to retreat. The runes pressed down on Sun Yongchang. Sun Yongchang couldn't move at all. His legs were trembling, and it seemed like he was about to kneel in front of Lin Feng. But at that moment, Lin Feng dispersed the runes on Sun Yongchang's body. The whole hall was silent. Everyone was staring at Lin Feng in shock. That was too terrifying. Sun Yongchang, one of the 12 deputy temple masters, had been suppressed in an instant. No wonder the four ancestors valued him so much. Vice Leader Sun, you're a strong cultivator of the holy shrine. You've worked hard for the holy shrine all your life, so I respect you a lot. I'm just telling you that under my leadership, the holy shrine will rise to glory. Today, I'm giving you face and sparing Zhuge Jian, but you should go back and tell him not to cause trouble for me again. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as kneeling on the ground next time, said Sun Zhuge Jian. Lin Feng waved his sleeve and Zhuge Jian was sent flying a dozen meters away. Chapter 1248. Sun Yongchang's expression changed, but in the end, he sighed. He had lived for more than 7,300 years and had been exposed to spiritual arrays since he was 8 years old. But now, he had been defeated by a 26-year-old youth. This made Sun Yongchang feel a deep sense of defeat. In the depths of his heart, he even felt that perhaps the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters could only reach glory under the leadership of such a heaven-defying figure like Lin Feng. Sun Yongchang gave Lin Feng a deep look, then turned and left. Zhuge Jian also hurriedly left with Sun Yongchang. After Sun Yongchang and Zhuge Jian left, many people rushed over. Great Elder Lin, I've heard a lot about you. Great Elder Lin, I've been friends with you for a long time. There was no lack of great elders among these people, and now, they all took the initiative to express their goodwill to Lin Feng. Vice Temple Lord Murong Baishan is here! Someone shouted at that moment. Everyone hurriedly made way, and Murong Baishan quickly walked in. When he saw Murong Baishan, Lin Feng was stunned. Murong Baishan and Murong Baichuan were too similar. At least 60 to 70% similar. Vice Temple Lord Murong Baishan and Vice Temple Lord Murong Baichuan are brothers. Lin Feng immediately thought of this possibility, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He had never heard Murong Baichuan mention it before, but these two brothers were really powerful. One was a Vice Temple Lord, while the other was a governor. Haha! Great Elder Lin, you've finally come to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. I was just busy with some matters, but when I heard that you were here, I hurried over. Murong Baishan smiled. Lin Feng greets the Vice Temple Lord. Lin Feng bowed to Murong Baishan. He could ignore Sun Yongchang, who was also a Vice Temple Lord, but he couldn't do the same to Murong Baishan. This was because Lin Feng knew that Vice Temple Lord Murong Baishan was definitely one of the Vice Temple Lords who supported him to be the fourth successor. It was Murong Baichuan who had recommended Lin Feng into the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, and Lin Feng and Murong Baichuan had a deep friendship. Murong Baichuan was a loyal supporter of Lin Feng. As Murong Baichuan's elder brother, Murong Baishan naturally supported Lin Feng. In fact, during this period of time, Murong Baishan had put in a lot of effort in the Spirit Array Master Temple. Not only had he roped in several Vice Temple Masters to support Lin Feng, he had also roped in many great elders. From Murong Baishan's perspective, Lin Feng was indeed worthy of their support and loyalty. A new emperor brings in his own ministers. The higher-ups of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters also had to consider their own futures. He had to choose a wise leader to follow in order to have a bright future. They were not only doing this for themselves, but also for their clansmen and future generations. Haha, Great Elder, there's no need to be so polite. Let's go to the inner hall, Murong Baishan said. Lin Feng nodded and went to the inner hall with Murong Baishan. The four ancestors think highly of you, but there are still some who are unwilling to give up and are secretly manipulating this matter. I've been very busy these past few days, but what I didn't expect was that your level as a spiritual array master had already reached such a high level. Murong Baishan clearly already knew that Lin Feng had suppressed Zhuge Jian and defeated Sun Yongchang. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Sometimes, showing one's strength will make many people shut up." Murong Baishan originally thought that Lin Feng had acted on impulse, but now that he heard Lin Feng's words, he was shocked. Clearly, Lin Feng had acted on purpose? Was this for the higher-ups to see? For the competition to see? Lin Feng smiled and said, "Originally, I didn't know why Zhuge Jian was targeting me. After all, I had just arrived at the Spiritual Array Master Temple and was unfamiliar with the place, so I didn't bother with him. Later, I found out that Zhuge Jian also wanted to become the fourth successor of the temple, so I suppressed him. He was kneeling on the ground and lost all face. Even the vice temple masters who supported him didn't have the face to continue recommending him, right? In the face of absolute strength, any scheme will be destroyed in a single blow." Murong Baishan was extremely shocked. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng's thoughts would be so meticulous. Furthermore, he was able to see the crux of many things. It was just as Lin Feng had said. In the face of absolute strength, any scheme would be like a paper tiger, and not worth mentioning. Murong Baishan knew that after today's events, the fourth successor would definitely belong to Lin Feng. Who would have the ability to compete with Lin Feng? "In the evening, there will be a party. A few vice leaders and some great elders of the holy shrine will be there to welcome you," said Lin Feng. Murong Baishan said. Obviously, Murong Baishan wanted to gather all the vice temple masters and great elders who supported Lin Feng to formally meet with Lin Feng. Everyone needed to deepen their relationship. This was an extremely important matter. Lin Feng nodded and said, "When? Where?" "Tonight at 6 o'clock, at the Four Saints building. Someone will come to pick you up then," Murong Baishan said. "Okay." Lin Feng nodded. When Sun Yongchang returned to his residence, the other two vice temple masters were already waiting for him. Zhuge Jian followed him in. Zhuge Jian's face was filled with hatred as he said, "Sir, I want to kill that brat. I want him to die without a grave. I'll contact the assassin dynasty right now. As long as he dies, the fourth successor will still be mine." Sun Yongchang sighed and said, "How can someone like him be killed so easily? One move. He was able to break my spirit array technique. This isn't something that can be done with a simple spirit array technique. I'm afraid that this person's strength is close to the rebirth realm." The other two vice temple masters were moved. They were called Lu Shibao and Dong Yinha. Lu Shibao said, "If that's the case, we need to find a time to have a good chat with Murong." Dong Yinha nodded and said, "Yes, we're about to leave. It's time to have a good chat with Murong." Seeing the three vice temple masters who supported him lower their heads, Zhuge Jian's heart not only hated Lin Feng, but also the three vice temple masters. He hated that the three vice temple masters had actually chosen to withdraw at this time. With the three of them withdrawing, it was impossible for him to control the Temple of Spirit Array Masters. Zhuge Jian was extremely greedy. Thus, he couldn't accept the fact that he had lost to Lin Feng. However, Zhuge Jian was a person with deep thoughts, so he wouldn't show this in front of the three vice temple masters. "Zhuge Jian, I know you're angry. Today, you shouldn't have attacked Lin Feng. You're kneeling on the ground, you're humiliating yourself. Even if Lin Feng didn't become the next great elder, you wouldn't have been able to become the next great elder. The four ancestors wouldn't have given such an important position to someone who had been forced to kneel on the ground in front of so many people. Lin Feng is rising, he can't be stopped. From now on, you should focus on being the great elder. Don't do anything else, otherwise you'll be killed," Sun Yongchang said. "Yes." Zhuge Jian lowered his head and replied. "All right, you may leave." Sun Yongchang waved his hand. "This subordinate will take his leave." Zhuge Jian left. After leaving Sun Yongchang's residence, Zhuge Jian's face became distorted. "Lin Feng, you little bastard, I'm going to kill you." "Sun Yongchang, Lu Shibao, Dong Yinha, you three old bastards, you actually chose to withdraw at this time. Don't blame me for being unkind to you. I want you all to die together. Go to hell, you bastards." Zhuge Jian quickly walked out of the Temple of Spirit Array Masters. He wanted to contact the Assassin Dynasty and offer a huge reward for them to kill Lin Feng, Sun Yongchang, Lu Shibao, and Dong Yinhe. Chapter 1249. Lin Feng was arranged to stay in a beautiful courtyard in the Spirit Array Master Temple. Bibi was happily jumping around in the courtyard, oblivious to everything else. The sun was setting in the west. Lin Feng looked at Bei Bei, who was playing, and smiled. Grand Elder, young Master Zhuge Haobo is here to see you. A servant girl came in to report. Lin Feng said, "Let him in." Soon, a teenager who looked to be around 16 or 17 walked in. Zhuge Haobo greets Grand Elder Lin. Zhuge Haobo bowed. No need for formalities. Lin Feng waved his hand. Zhuge Haobo stood up and looked curiously at the man who was only a few years older than him, but who was rumored to be the next leader of the temple. The news of Lin Feng suppressing Zhuge Jian with a flick of his finger and defeating Sun Yongchang had spread far and wide. Now, the entire temple city was talking about it. Zhuge Haobo was naturally very curious about Lin Feng. "You're called Zhuge Haobo. How is Zhuge Haobo related to you?" Lin Feng asked. "He's my great-grandfather," Zhuge Haobo said. Lin Feng nodded. Zhuge Haobo said, "Grand Elder, the carriage is ready. Should we head to the Four Saints' house for the banquet?" "All right, lead the way," said Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "Yes." Zhuge Haobo led the way. Lin Feng got into a carriage, and Zhuge Haobo personally drove the carriage towards the Four Saints' house. "It seems like Zhuge Haobo is quite talented. That's why Zhuge Baishan asked him to drive the carriage for me. He probably wants me to remember him." Lin Feng closed his eyes and rested. Niu Dajiang and the others escorted the disciples of the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty to the Temple City. The last mission was completed. More than 10 people were walking on the streets. Someone said, 180 years ago, which is today, we've become the guards of the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. 180 years later, we've completed our final duty as guards. 180 years is a cycle. Not a day more, not a day less. I wonder, where will we spend the next 180 years? They had worked so hard for so many years and were about to obtain a manor and land in the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty. But in the end, all their efforts were in vain. They naturally felt extremely stifled in their hearts. It wasn't easy being an itinerant cultivator. They couldn't compare to the cultivators of the major clans and powers, who had to worry about many things. Niu Dajiang replied, "No matter how difficult life is, life has to go on. I wonder how Brother Lin is doing. Did he find his family?" One of them said. Niu Dajiang replied, "Before Brother Lin left, he gave me a jade tablet and told me to go to the Spirit Array Master Temple to find him. He said that he would find us a job." The others smiled and shook their heads. One of them said, "Young people like to save face sometimes. Brother Lin is also young, so it's understandable." "That's right. We used to be people of that age too. I heard that some clans are recruiting guards in the Temple City's plaza. Should we go take a look?" another person asked. Niu Dajiang sighed. "There's a lot of competition over there. I've asked around, and those powers are recruiting at most 3 to 5 people, and at least 1 or 2 people. If we go to the Holy City's plaza to find a job, I'm afraid we'll be separated." Another person said, "Of the 100 or so brothers who came out together, only a dozen or so of us are left." Niu Dajiang said, "I'm planning to go out and find a job. What do you all think? That way, the remaining dozen or so of us will be able to advance and retreat together." The others nodded in agreement. Niu Dajiang and the others were all from a small city in the Central Plains. Back then, Niu Dajiang had led 100 or so brothers out. After so many years, many of them had died in one mission after another. Now only a dozen or so of them were left. Whenever they thought of their dead brothers, Niu Dajiang and the others couldn't help but feel sad. They were independent cultivators, the lowest level of existence in the world of cultivators. Perhaps one day, they would be buried in some desolate mountain like their dead brothers. Niu Dajiang continued. The jade tablet that Brother Lin gave me doesn't look like an ordinary item. I don't know if it's something passed down in his family. Let's return it to Brother Lin, then we'll leave. Someone said. If we return the jade tablet to Brother Lin, and he doesn't have a way to introduce us to jobs when he sees us, wouldn't it be very awkward? The others nodded, feeling that this was very reasonable. Niu Dajiang said. Didn't Brother Lin go to the Spirit Array Master Temple to find his relatives? Let's ask the guards at the Spirit Array Master Temple. If Brother Lin enters the temple, we'll give the jade tablet to the guards and let them pass it to Brother Lin. When everyone heard this, it made sense. Then, the group of people walked towards the Spirit Array Master Temple. The Spirit Array Master Temple was filled with endless majesty. It was like the imperial palace of a secular country, isolated from the outside world. Niu Dajiang and the others carefully arrived outside the Spirit Array Master Temple. More than a dozen people were stopped by the guards. A guard said in a deep voice, The Spirit Array Master Temple is not to be trespassed. Niu Dajiang said carefully, Sir, it's like this. We're looking for a cultivator called Lin Qing. Lin Qing? There doesn't seem to be anyone called Lin Qing in the Spirit Array Master Temple. The guard said, It's like this. Brother Lin Qing came to the Spirit Array Master Temple not long ago to look for his relatives. It's very likely that he has already entered the temple. Can I trouble you to help me ask? Niu Dajiang asked carefully. Lu Linhai, go to the Foreign Affairs Hall and ask if there's someone called Lin Qing who came to look for relatives. Nailin Yuanfeng said. If someone came to the Spirit Array Master Temple to look for relatives, they would be registered in the Foreign Affairs Hall. Yes, sir, the cultivator called Lu Linhai said. He went to ask, but soon returned and reported to Nailin Yuanfeng. Sir, there's no one called Lin Qing who came to look for relatives. Nailin Yuanfeng nodded, then looked at Niu Dajiang and the others and said, The person you're looking for isn't here. Quickly leave. Yes. Niu Dajiang and the others didn't dare to stay, and they walked outside. It seems like Brother Lin didn't find his relatives? Someone asked. Niu Dajiang nodded and said, Yes, if Brother Lin found his relatives, the Foreign Affairs Hall should have a record. Let's go and look for Brother Lin. Let's see if we can find him. The group of more than 10 people walked outside. At that moment, more than 10 people riding black flame beasts rushed over from the distance. There were more than 10 young cultivators, both male and female. They rampaged through the streets, causing people to be thrown off their horses. Many people who were slower to dodge were sent flying by whips. A group of lowly commoners. Do you think the Spirit Array Master Temple is a place you can just casually watch? One of the young cultivators sneered. During this period of time, many people had come to Temple City to pay their respects to the mysterious Spirit Array Master Temple. Most of them were independent cultivators. These independent cultivators had risked their lives to cross the forest to reach Temple City, and they weren't just there to watch the show. Now, the geniuses of the 3,000 prefectures had gathered in Temple City, and these geniuses were all from extraordinary backgrounds. Their clans had sent higher-ups to escort them here. These independent cultivators wanted to find an opportunity to climb up the ranks of some of the major powers, then join them and become their guards. After all, it was better to lean against a big tree. After crossing the forest, some of the major powers had indeed lost many guards, and those who were able to stay in the Spirit Array Master Temple were few and far between. Most of them would leave after the finals, so the powers that had left had to recruit new guards to fill in the gaps of those who had died. As long as they were strong enough, independent cultivators could find decent clans to join. However, the higher-ups of the Spirit Array Master Temple looked down on these ordinary independent cultivators. Not to mention ordinary independent cultivators, most of them even looked down on the descendants of aristocratic families. Now, most of the people gathered outside the Spirit Array Master Temple to watch the show were independent cultivators, and there were very few descendants of aristocratic families. If it was a descendant of an aristocratic family, They didn't need to watch from the outside, and could follow their elders into the Spirit Array Master Temple to pay a visit. Most aristocratic families had friendly relations with the Spirit Array Master Temple. This was also the reason why this group of higher-ups of the Spirit Array Master Temple were so unscrupulous in harming others. In fact, the descendants of the higher-ups of any major powers had both outstanding and mediocre disciples. Naturally, there was no lack of hedonistic disciples. A group of more than 10 people rode on black flame beasts and rushed towards the Spirit Array Master Temple. Along the way, they lashed out again and again, and many cultivators who were slower to dodge were sent flying. This was the tragedy of independent cultivators. In a world where the strong preyed on the weak, even if independent cultivators were bullied, who would speak up for them even if they were killed? No one cared about the life and death of independent cultivators. In a world where people ate people, this was the cruelest law of survival. "Pa!" One of the young masters raised his whip and lashed out again. Crack! A 15 or 16-year-old boy grabbed the whip that was lashed at him. "Aren't you guys going too far? Aren't independent cultivators also human?" the young man said angrily. "You're courting death." The young master who had lashed out felt that he had lost face when his whip was caught, and he sent the youth flying with a slap. Wah! The youth was no match for the young master and spat out a mouthful of blood. The young master rode on his black flame beast and rushed forward, lashing out at the youth again and again. The youth's skin was torn open. Many people were angry, but they didn't dare to speak up. Who would dare to offend this group of second-generation Spirit Array Masters in Temple City? "This kid is simply courting death. Who does he think he is? How dare he question young Master M.O.?" The group of people laughed as they looked at the half-dead young man who had been whipped. Seeing that the youth was twitching all over, Nyode rushed forward and stood in front of the youth. He pleaded with the young master called Young Master M.O. "Young Master, please calm down. This child is still young and has offended you. Now that he has been punished, please be merciful and let this child go." Young Master M.O. sneered. "Today is really strange. There are actually so many fearless independent cultivators jumping out to find trouble with this young master." As soon as he finished speaking, young Master M.O. lashed out at Neo Dajian's face with his whip. Immediately, the left side of Neo Dajian's face was torn open, and fresh blood flowed out. Even his flesh was exposed, and he looked rather miserable. Chapter 1250. Brother Nyo. When the others saw how badly Neo Dajian was beaten, their eyes turned red. "What? You want to rebel? Do you loose cultivators not want to live anymore?" Young Master M.O. said coldly. "Don't interfere." Neo Dajian quickly shook his head. They were all loose cultivators, so how could they fight against the second generation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters? If they really angered the second generation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, if the second generation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters wanted to kill them, it would be too easy. The others also knew that they couldn't fight against the second generation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. They could only suppress the anger in their hearts. "I'll give you 100 whips. If you can live, I'll spare you lowly people," Young Master M.O. said with a smile. In his opinion, this was just playing around. Didn't the second generation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters like to build the pain of others on top of their own happiness? This kind of thing happened too often. "I hope the young master will keep his word," Neo Dajiang said. Crack! 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 Young Master M.O. whipped Neo Dajiang again and again. In an instant, Neo Dajiang's skin and flesh were torn open. Not long after, Neo Dajiang was covered in blood. Neo Dajiang was a man, so he didn't make a sound. The second generation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters looked at the scene with great interest. When they saw Neo Dajiang's half-dead appearance, they felt waves of excitement. At that moment, 2 old men walked out of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. They were the Vice-Temple Masters, Lu Shibao and Dong Yinhe. Lu Shibao and Dong Yinhe heard that Murong Baishan had invited Lin Feng to a banquet tonight, so they planned to go to the Four Saints building. They hoped that Murong Baishan could be the middleman and introduce them to Lin Feng. Then, they could resolve some misunderstandings between them. Sun Yongchan had just fought with Lin Feng, so he didn't go personally to avoid any awkwardness. However, he prepared a gift for Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe to bring to Lin Feng. However, just as they came out, they saw a group of juniors from the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters surrounding a loose cultivator. One of them was even holding a whip and lashing out at another loose cultivator. Seeing this scene, Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe's faces immediately darkened. In fact, regardless of whether it was Sun Yongchang, Lu Shibao, or Dong Yunhe, as the deputy hall masters of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, they were all relatively upright. They had previously supported Zhuge Jian, and this was a power struggle. Fighting for power didn't mean they had bad conduct. Furthermore, Lu Shibao himself was in charge of the law enforcement hall of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Naturally, he would not tolerate such a thing. "Guard Captain Nalen, what's going on?" Lu Shibao asked. It was Great Elder Mo's grandson and the descendants of a dozen or so other elders. They were rampaging through the streets and injured quite a few people. A young man was enraged and grabbed Great Young Master Mo's whip. Because of that, Great Young Master Mo was enraged and beat that young man half to death. Another person couldn't bear to watch any longer and came out to protect that young man. Great Young Master Mo said that if he whipped him 100 times, he would spare that young man. That cultivator agreed, but Great Young Master Mo had imbued his whip with dermic power, so that cultivator protecting the young man was also beaten half to death. Nalen Yuanfang explained. Dong Yunhe said, "You just watched Mo Zijia beat people half to death without doing anything?" Nalen Yuanfang hurriedly said, "Vice Palace Master, this subordinate also wants to interfere, but Mo Zijia and the others all have extraordinary statuses, so we don't have the authority to interfere. Furthermore, Grand Elder Mo is the head of the Law Enforcement Hall, so we don't have the authority to interfere with these young masters' matters." Dong Yunhe nodded with a gloomy expression. He understood that these guards didn't have it easy. He said, "This Great Elder Mo is relying on that person's support. It's fine if he acts domineeringly in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, but even his descendants are learning from him. The reputation of our Temple of Spiritual Array Masters will be ruined by these spoiled brats." Lu Shibao said, "Let's go take a look." Then, the group walked over. Because Mo Zijia's whips were filled with magic power, even Niu Dajiang's iron-like body couldn't withstand more than 60 whips. He fell to the ground, unable to move. "You can't take more than 60 whips? What a piece of trash!" Mo Zijia sneered, but he didn't intend to stop. He raised his right hand and lashed out again and again. Many people looked at Mo Zijia angrily, but how could they dare to do anything? Niu Dajiang's brothers clenched their fists and wanted to pounce on Mo Zijia. Niu Dajiang, who was lying on the ground, kept shaking his head, indicating that they shouldn't be impulsive. Mo Zijia raised his right hand and lashed out at Niu Dajiang again. At that moment, a cold voice shouted, "Stop! It's Deputy Temple Master Lu!" When the spoiled brats saw Lu Shibao's angry voice, their faces turned pale and they quickly retreated. Mo Zijia wasn't afraid of Lu Shibao. Lu Shibao was about to retreat. His grandfather was about to take over Lu Shibao's position. Therefore, it wasn't without reason that Mo Zijia was so arrogant and despotic. He was full of confidence. "Junior greets the 2 deputy temple masters." Mo Zijia bowed slightly. "Humph!" Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe snorted and ignored Mo Zijia. Instead, they looked at Niu Dajiang, who was beaten half to death, and the youth. "This brother is also unlucky. He didn't find the person he was looking for, and instead, he was beaten half to death." Seeing Niu Dajiang on the ground, Nalen Yuanfang shook his head and sighed. Lu Shibao asked, "Captain Nalen, do you know this person?" Nalen Yuanfang replied, "Reporting to Master, this person came to the temple not long ago to look for a cultivator called Lin Qing. He said that he was friends with Lin Qing and that they came to the temple together. After they parted ways, Lin Qing came to the temple to look for relatives. However, this subordinate sent someone to the External Affairs Hall to check the records and found that there were indeed more than 10 cultivators who came to look for relatives. They were temporarily arranged to stay in Su Yun's courtyard, but there was no one called Lin Qing. Lin Qing? Lin Qing? His surname is Lin? Lu Shibao frowned slightly. Dong Yunhe frowned as well. They suddenly remembered that Lin Feng was also surnamed Lin. Lu Shibao looked at the half-dead Niu Dajiang and asked, "Brother, I heard that you came to the temple to look for someone called Lin Qing. Do you have a token?" "Yes, I do." Niu Dajiang's hands were trembling. He took out the jade tablet that Lin Feng had given him and gave it to Lu Shibao. "This? The Grand Elder's token?" Lu Shibao was shocked. He quickly took it and inspected it with his divine sense. "Brother Dong, take a look." Lu Shibao gave the token to Dong Yunhe. Dong Yunhe inspected it and was shocked. "It's Grand Elder Lin's token. Grand Elder Lin actually gave it to this person. It seems like this person's relationship with Grand Elder Lin isn't simple," Dong Yunhe whispered. "All right." Lu Shibao nodded and quickly ordered, "Guard Captain Nalin, quickly help him up." Captain Nalin hurriedly helped Niu Dajiang up, while the other guard helped the youth up. Mo Zijian naturally recognized the Grand Elder's command token. When he saw Niu Dajiang take out the Grand Elder's command token, he felt that something was wrong. Mo Zijia hurriedly signaled for one of his followers to report the situation. However, how could Mo Zijia's little trick hide from Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe, the two vice hall masters? At that moment, Lu Shibao shouted coldly, "Let's see if any of you who have committed a crime dares to leave." The spoiled brat who had intended to report the situation was so frightened that his legs went weak, and he almost fell to the ground. "Mo Zijia, do you admit to your crimes?" Lu Shibao looked coldly at Mo Zijia and shouted, "What crimes have I committed?" Mo Zijia countered with a fearless look. He was certain that a deputy hall master of Willowstone Castle who was about to retire would not dare to punish him. Since he was about to retire, would he dare to offend his grandfather? But this time, Mo Zijia's guess was wrong. If the person who had been beaten had been an ordinary independent cultivator, Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe might not have punished Mo Zijia. However, the person who had been beaten half to death was holding Lin Feng's Grand Elder's token. It was obvious that he was Lin Feng's friend. They all knew Lin Feng's temperament. He was an overbearing and aggressive person. His friend had been beaten half to death. How could he let the matter rest? Of course not. Right now, Lin Feng did not know about this matter. If he did, who knew what would happen? Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe had been worrying about how to get in touch with Lin Feng to resolve the misunderstanding between them. Now, Niu Dajiang's beating had given them an opportunity. Lu Shibao looked coldly at Dong Yunhe. "As a disciple of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, you have committed outrages outside and tarnished the reputation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. I don't even need to mention your other crimes. Just this crime alone is enough for you to be punished with a broken leg and expelled from the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters." Hearing Lu Shibao's words, Mo Zijia's expression suddenly changed. He could tell that Lu Shibao was not joking. Mo Zijia said, "I want to see my grandfather. As the hall master of the Law Enforcement Hall, he will know whether I'm guilty or not." Lu Shibao immediately sneered. "Mo Zijia, have you forgotten that even the Law Enforcement Hall is one of the 3 halls that I manage? Could it be that I don't understand the law of the Spiritual Array Master Temple better than your grandfather? Guard Captain Nalin, Mo Zijia and his group of 15 have openly violated the rules of the Spiritual Array Master Temple. They have abused their power to bully others, treated human lives like grass, and tarnished the reputation of the Spiritual Array Master Temple. According to the law, all of their legs will be broken and sent to the prison. After the 12 Vice Hall Masters have a discussion, they will be expelled from the Spiritual Array Master Temple." "Yes, carry out the order." Nalin Yuanfang waved his hand and a group of guards immediately pounced on Mo Zijia, and his group like wolves and tigers. "Lu Shibao, you old man, let's see if you dare break my legs." Mo Zijia cursed loudly. Kacha kacha! In the next moment, his 2 legs were directly broken by a guard. This was a comminuted fracture, and there was no chance for him to recover at all. Including Mozgia, 15 young thugs fell to the ground and screamed miserably. Dong Yinhe waved his hand and said, "Send them to the prison." "Good, well done. The Spiritual Array Master Temple is indeed worthy of being one of the 3 supreme powers of the Tianwu continent. They are really fair." Countless people clapped their hands and cheered. "Quickly carry the injured back to the temple and invite the great elder of the Spiritual Herb Hall to treat them," Lu Shibao ordered. At this moment, 4 guards carried a stretcher over and placed the heavily injured Niu Dajiang and the youth on it before carrying them into the Spiritual Array Master Temple. Niu Dajiang's 10 brothers also followed them into the temple. Countless people were still excitedly discussing how Lu Shibao had punished Mozgia and his group. There were even people who used memory crystals to record how Lu Shibao righteously dealt with Mozgia's matter. Very quickly, the contents of the memory crystals were continuously copied and spread throughout the entire temple city in an extremely short period of time. This matter caused a huge uproar. After all, which power didn't have hedonistic disciples? However, many powers had a tolerant attitude towards hedonistic disciples. At most, they would verbally restrain them. However, it was the first time they had seen such a severe punishment for hedonistic disciples like the Spiritual Array Master Temple. It's not without reason that the Spiritual Array Master Temple was able to become one of the 3 supreme powers of the Tianwu continent. Countless powerhouses from great powers couldn't help but sigh with emotion after seeing the images in the memory crystals. They also felt admiration for the Spiritual Array Master Temple's impartiality. Chapter 1251. In the main hall. Dong Yinhe smiled and said, "Although dealing with Mozgia and the others offended Mo Lingchan, it was a great help in repairing our relationship with Lin Feng. Furthermore, news of Brother Lu's impartiality has already spread throughout the entire temple city. This matter might even reach the ears of the 4 ancestors. When the time comes, the 4 ancestors will definitely reward Brother Lu," Lu Shibao said. "Although dealing with Mozgia and the others was partly due to Lin Feng, in fact, even without Lin Feng, I would have dealt with them the same way." "Oh? Why is that?" Dong Yinhe looked at Lu Shibao suspiciously. He was very familiar with Lu Shibao's personality, which was why he had been unable to suppress Mo Lingchan all these years. Lu Shibao said, "Look at what Mozgia and the others have done. The reputation of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters has been ruined by these people. If we don't deal with these black sheep, who knows how many people will follow them in the future? Furthermore, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Mozgia is so arrogant and despotic, isn't it because Mo Lingchan has spoiled him? If I step down and let Mo Lingchan take over my position, what will happen to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters? Therefore, before I step down, I must bring down Mo Lingchan." Hearing Lu Shibao's powerful words, Dong Yinhe realized that he had really underestimated this old friend of his. Dong Yinhe sighed and said, "You know that bringing down Mo Lingchan is too difficult. He has that person behind him." "Of course I know it's difficult, but what if Lin Feng is on my side?" Lu Shibao narrowed his eyes. "You want to drag Lin Feng with you?" Dong Yinhe's expression changed. He said, "Even if Lin Feng becomes the 4th successor, his foundation is still shallow. I'm afraid he won't defend that person." Lu Shibao sighed and said, "When the time comes, I will test Lin Feng and see what kind of person he is." "Are we still going to the 4 Saints building?" Dong Yinhe asked. "I'm not going. Since Niu Dajiang and the others are Lin Feng's friends, Lin Feng will definitely come over when he hears about what happened here. I need to use this time to think about how to discuss this matter with Lin Feng," Lu Shibao said. 2 hours ago, Niu Dajiang and the others had just arrived outside the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters and inquired about Lin Feng from Nailin Yuanfang. The name Lin Qing was a pseudonym, so Niu Dajiang wasn't able to find out anything about it. Niu Dajiang and the others returned empty-handed, while Lin Feng arrived at the 4 Saints building in a carriage. Great Elder, we've arrived at the Four Saints Tower. Murong Habwa's voice came from outside. In the carriage, Lin Feng, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes. Yes, he responded with a grunt. Murong Habwa opened the curtain and Lin Feng got off the carriage. Master Murong. The waiter quickly ran over. Obviously, he knew Murong Habwa, this top-notch young master. Help me bring the carriage down, Murong Habwa said. Although Murong Habwa had an extraordinary background, he wasn't a bossy and domineering person. Instead, he was amiable and approachable. Yes, I'll do it right away. The waiter brought the carriage to a place far away. Great Elder, this way please. Murong Habwa led the way. Lin Feng nodded and followed Murong Habwa to the Four Saints Tower. The Four Saints Tower was the best gathering place in the temple city, and it was bustling with people. Lin Gongzi. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from outside. Lin Feng turned around and saw Zhao Linger. He told Murong Habwa to stop and wait for him. Then, Lin Feng walked towards Zhao Linger. Why are you here? Zhao Linger asked. Lin Feng smiled and said, A friend invited me. What about you? Zhao Linger said. I heard that there's a gathering in the Four Saints Tower, and that a great figure is coming. The vice heads of the Temple of Spiritual Formation Masters and more than 30 great elders have already arrived. After the news spread, many people from different powers came, hoping to meet that great figure. We're also here to try our luck. At that moment, Zhang Hanxian, Shen Mobai, and the others came over. Zhang Hanxian frowned when he saw Lin Feng and said, Why are you here? Could it be that you followed us here? Last time, you followed us through the desolate ancient forest, and now you want to follow us to meet that great figure from the Temple of Spiritual Formation Masters? Brother Lin, you should know how to restrain yourself. Shen Mobai and the others also looked at Lin Feng with disdain. Zhao Linger was unhappy and wanted to retort, but Lin Feng waved his hand, indicating that she didn't need to explain anything. Lin Feng said, I was invited here by a friend, and I just met up with Linger, so I didn't come here to chase after you. Please don't misunderstand. My friend must be waiting anxiously, so I'll take my leave. Lin Feng cupped his fists and turned to leave. What kind of powerful friend could a wandering cultivator have? Lu Lishui curled his lips in disdain. Li Muzi said, The three ancestors are waiting anxiously. Let's go quickly. They nodded and quickly went to a private room on the second floor. On the fifth floor, in a supreme private room. When Lin Feng and Murong Habwa arrived at the Four Saints Tower, Murong Baishan and the others had already received the news. However, Lin Feng had told Murong Baishan in advance not to welcome him. It was just a private gathering, so there was no need to make such a big scene. He and Murong Habwa entered the private room. Great Elder Lin is here. Murong Baishan stood up. Walala, the 40 or so people sitting in the private room stood up in unison. There were 4 vice palace masters and 39 great elders in total. Each of them was someone who could make the earth tremble with a stomp of their feet. Each of them had a high status and power. Everyone couldn't help but look at the young man who followed Murong Habwa into the private room. The young man had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He was extraordinarily handsome, and when he walked, he had the aura of an emperor. Many people were shocked. They had heard a lot about Lin Feng, and now that they saw Lin Feng in person, they couldn't help but be amazed. Haha, this must be Great Elder Lin, right? Murong, why don't you introduce him to everyone? A tall and sturdy cultivator said with a laugh. Murong Baishan smiled and said, Everyone knows a lot about Great Elder Lin Feng, so I won't say too much. Many people laughed. Since they had chosen to be Lin Feng's supporters and followers, they naturally knew a lot about Lin Feng. Murong Baichuan continued, Great Elder Lin, the 3 beside me are Vice Palace Master Tan Chuduan, Vice Palace Master Wan Yangzi, and Vice Palace Master He Daotong. P.S. I wrote Murong Habwa as Zhiga Habwa. It was a typo, so I corrected it. Chapter 1252. Greetings, Vice Temple Masters! Lin Feng bowed to the 3 of them. Ha ha, Grand Elder Lin, there's no need to be so courteous. The three Vice Temple Masters didn't dare to be arrogant and hurriedly supported Lin Feng. How could they let Lin Feng bow to them? Lin Feng smiled and said, "This is my first time here, so I'll have to rely on the three of you in the future." Tan Chuduan smiled and said, "If there's anything you don't understand in the future, you can look for us. We still have some authority in the Spirit Array Master Temple." Murong Baishan smiled and said, "These three old fellows love to study spirit arrays. They've been itching to have a good exchange with you." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Sure, when I have time, I'll discuss it with the three of you." The three of them smiled and said, "Then we can't wait." Many people couldn't help but laugh. These three Vice Temple Masters were famous for being crazy about spirit arrays. Sometimes, they wouldn't sleep for half a month just to study spirit arrays. It was obvious how obsessed they were with spirit arrays. Murong Baishan continued to introduce Lin Feng to the other 39 Grand Elders. These Grand Elders were only a portion of the Grand Elders who supported Lin Feng. Most of the Grand Elders were outside of the temple, and many of them were officials like Murong Baichuan, so they weren't in the temple right now. Lin Feng engraved the names of these Grand Elders in his heart. "Let's toast Grand Elder Lin together, shall we?" Murong Baishan said with a smile. No one had any objections. "I'll drink first as a sign of respect." Lin Feng raised his cup and drained it in one gulp. Apart from the Vice Temple Masters and Grand Elders, there were more than 10 young cultivators in the private room. There were both men and women, and they were all serving tea and pouring wine for everyone. These people had the same status as Murong Haobua, and they were the more outstanding disciples of the Vice Temple Masters. Now, these people looked at Lin Feng with both respect and admiration. Lin Feng was about the same age as them, but now, even their elders had become Lin Feng's followers. This caused a huge shock in their hearts. Originally, many people thought that they were of good birth and noble status, so they were complacent. Now that they saw Lin Feng, who was the moon surrounded by stars, they realized that their status was nothing to be proud of. In order to gain the respect of others, one must possess great strength. Just like Lin Feng. Many of them swore to themselves that they would train hard in the future. Obviously, Murong Haobua and the others had taken Lin Feng as their goal. Perhaps this was what Murong Baishan and the others wanted to see. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, the atmosphere of the banquet was also quite rich. At that moment, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Since it's our first time meeting, I've prepared some small gifts for everyone." When Lin Feng finished talking, he flicked his finger. Swish! Swish! Jade talismans flew out and landed in front of everyone. "What's this?" Everyone looked at Lin Feng in confusion. Lin Feng smiled and said, "When cultivators cultivate, they go against the heavens. Countless people have been punished by the heavens in the process of cultivation and have died tragically in the lightning tribulation. Although cultivators can die without regrets after going through so many tribulations, who wouldn't feel regret if they died tragically in the lightning tribulation after going through so many hardships in their lives?" Many people became emotional when they heard Lin Feng's words. It had not been easy for them to cultivate to this point. Their friends, brothers, and family members who had cultivated with them in the past had all turned to dust. Lightning tribulation was indeed the thing that everyone feared the most. How many people had died tragically in the lightning tribulation? Perhaps many of the people present here would also die under the lightning tribulation in the near future. This was the fate of cultivators. Most of the time, fate could not be resisted. Either they died of old age, or they broke through their cultivation and increased their lifespan, going against the heavens and seizing life to live forever. Since they wanted to live forever, they had to be prepared to die in the lightning tribulation. Many people were afraid of the lightning tribulation, but they still had to undergo it. Perhaps this was what countless cultivators feared the most. There's a secret technique recorded in these jade talismans called the minor tribulation technique. Lin Feng said. Minor tribulation technique? What kind of secret technique is that? Vice Palace Master Wang Yangzi asked in confusion. The minor tribulation technique is a divine ability that I evolved from the Great Calamity technique. Although it's not as powerful as the Great Calamity technique, it has the ability to devour the lightning tribulation. Since everyone has cultivated the minor tribulation technique, you won't have to worry about being destroyed by the lightning tribulation in the future. Lin Feng smiled. What? Everyone stood up abruptly, their hands trembling as they held the jade talismans. The eyes of the dozen or so juniors suddenly widened. Everyone had a shocked expression on their faces. It could completely ignore the lightning tribulation. This divine ability was too heaven-defying. Everyone knew how valuable this minor tribulation transcending technique was. It could even cause a storm of blood. Thank you, Great Elder Lin. Soon, the Vice Palace Masters and Great Elders came back to their senses. They excitedly held the jade talismans and thanked Lin Feng repeatedly. The lightning tribulation troubled everyone. The stronger a cultivator was, the more they feared the lightning tribulation. This was because the stronger a cultivator was, the more terrifying the lightning tribulation would be. Everyone present was worried about their own lightning tribulation. Now that they had the minor tribulation technique, they wouldn't have to worry about it in the future. Moreover, everyone knew that once this psychological burden was put down, their minds would become clear, and their cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. It was foreseeable that their cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds in the future. Lin Feng said with a smile. You are all my supporters and followers, so I naturally won't treat you unfairly. This minor tribulation technique is just a greeting gift. In the future, I will establish a complete reward system. If you can meet the requirements, I can even teach you the 3,000 Great Daos. I can even teach you the Great Calamity technique, which is ranked 9th among the 3,000 Great Daos. When everyone heard Lin Feng's words, they were incomparably excited, and they wished that they could shed blood for Lin Feng. Lin Feng already knew what everyone's reaction would be. The art of controlling people required both kindness and severity. Lin Feng was now consolidating the relationship between the two sides, so he naturally had to show some sincerity to make these people unswervingly loyal to him. Lin Feng smiled and said, Everyone, as the saying goes, nothing can be accomplished without rules. This minor tribulation technique is a divine ability that cultivators at the Great Elder level and above can cultivate. It's also one of the many rewards, so I added some restrictions. If it's passed on to others, the restrictions will erase the memories of the minor tribulation technique in their souls. We naturally understand. Please rest assured, Great Elder. Murong Baishan and the others hurriedly said. Lin Feng nodded and looked at Murong Haobua and the others. He smiled and said, Since you've been brought here by your elders, you must be young disciples who are highly regarded. Don't slack off on your cultivation. In the future, when you become great elders, you will also be able to learn the minor tribulation technique. Yes, we will definitely cultivate diligently. When Murong Haobua and the others heard that they would also have a chance to learn the minor tribulation technique, they were all extremely excited. Murong Baishan said, Great Elder, there are many high-ranking members of large aristocratic families who want to meet you. There are even some ancient powers among them. Would you like to meet them? Then let's meet them. It's very important to maintain a good relationship with these top-ranking powers, Lin Feng said. Author's note: there are actually a lot of words in today's chapter. There are even more words in today's chapter. Chapter 1253. This is an invitation card. Murong Baishan handed a gold-edged invitation card to Lin Feng. It listed the people who wanted to visit Lin Feng. There were many factions in the Tianwu continent. The immemorial Jiang family, the 4 great ancient empires, and other factions were publicly recognized as the top factions. However, the 3 most terrifying factions were not the immemorial Jiang family, but the Martial Spirit Temple, the Spiritual Array Master Temple, and the Alchemist Guild. These 3 factions were inextricably linked with countless other factions. Take the Spiritual Array Master Temple for example. Among the great elders of the Spiritual Array Master Temple, the number of rogue cultivators was very small. Most of them came from various factions. They could often be the bridge between the spiritual array master temple and their own families. Think about it. If the spiritual array master temple really wanted to use their power, how much power would they have? Was this something a faction could compare to? Of course not. The spiritual array master temple had 4 successors. The factions in the Tianwu continent would each choose a successor to be on good terms with. For example, the people of the Divine Temple would definitely not choose to be on good terms with Lin Feng. They could choose to be on good terms with the other 3 successors. The 4 heirs of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters had always kept each other in check. Therefore, the power they controlled was also kept in check. It was just like the 4 saint-level ancestors. In the early years, the relationship between them was not very harmonious. When they were old, the 4 sage-level ancestors wanted to leave the Tianwu continent and needed to find successors. At this time, they were about to give up their power, but they became very harmonious. Now, the various factions that came to visit him were all factions that wanted to be on good terms with him. Of course, they might not know him very well, or they might have chosen to visit him because they were on good terms with a vice-temple master or a great elder. However, this was not important. What was important was whether he could borrow the strength of these factions in the future. According to the strength of the factions, the major figures of each faction were listed from top to bottom. The immemorial Jiang family's Jiang Tiando, the great Zhou Empire's Ji Xianyan. Lin Feng glanced at the list. There were more than 20 immemorial aristocratic families, followed by some ancient sacred lands, ancient celestial dynasties, and other quasi-immemorial aristocratic families. There were also many forces from the Primordial Era, and the Ancient Era. The strongest should be the ancient Jiang family and the great Zhou Empire. Let Jiang Tiando from the Jiang clan and Ji Xianyan from the great Zhou Empire come first, Lin Feng said. Murong Baishan nodded and immediately ordered a great elder to invite them. Not long after, Jiang Tiando, Ji Xianyan, and many other clansmen arrived. Old Jiang, long time no see. How are you? After seeing Jiang Tiando, Lin Feng smiled and cupped his fists. Back when Jiang Tiando was in charge of the auction house in the 72 northern prefectures, Lin Feng also knew him. Later on, Jiang Tiando was transferred back to the clan, while Jian Yudi went out to train and took over Jiang Tiando's position. Speaking of which, Lin Feng's relationship with Primordial Ginger should be the best. Everything is fine. It's been so many years, it feels like a lifetime has passed. Jiang Tiando cupped his fists and smiled. After exchanging some pleasantries, Lin Feng looked at the middle-aged woman in white and cupped his fists. You must be Ji Xianyan from the Ji clan. When Ji Xianyan saw that Lin Feng was so humble, her impression of him improved. She smiled and said, I've always wanted to see fellow Taoist Lin Feng's elegance, but I never had the chance. Now that I've seen you, I'm amazed. Fellow Taoist Lin, you're even more handsome than the rumors say. Ji Xianyan was being polite. Lin Feng could tell that she was being polite. He smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Ji, you're too kind. I don't deserve your praise. Ji Xianyan smiled and said, I'm not being polite. Over the years, I've seen many outstanding young people, but you're the first one who's achieved so much through your own efforts at such a young age. That's why I admire you so much. After pausing for a moment, Ji Xianyan continued, In the beginning, I heard Yuhan mention you. If it weren't for your help, Yuhan might have already died in the land of death. My Ji clan has never forgotten your kindness. Many people dreamed of having the great Zhou Empire owe them a favor, but Lin Feng didn't take it to heart. With his current status, he was indifferent to such things as human relationships. He smiled and said, I wonder how Ji Yuhan is doing now? Ji Xianyan replied, She's been cultivating with the ancestor for many years. She has a lively personality and needs to be restrained. Otherwise, it'll be difficult for her to calm down and cultivate. The young cultivators from the Jiang and Ji clans had mixed feelings when they saw Lin Feng chatting with the 2 important figures of their clans. They were all top-notch geniuses in the outside world and were respected by everyone. However, compared to Lin Feng, they were worlds apart. Lin Feng was even younger than many of them, but he was talking and laughing with the elders of their clans. Many people couldn't help but sigh. After the members of the primordial Jiang family and the Ji family left, the remaining primordial powers also met up in pairs. Of course, the Tianwu continent was so vast that many ancient powers didn't have any relations with the Temple of Spiritual Formation Masters. They didn't even send their disciples to participate in the Spiritual Formation Master competition. There were many such hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Only a small portion of the hegemonic powers would be able to come here. But even if it was only a small portion, if one could form a good relationship with them, it might be of great use in the future. After the ancient powers were some quasi-ancient powers. These powers included ancient celestial dynasties, ancient clans, sects, and so on. 5 quasi-ancient powers came together to meet Lin Feng. Pengli, ancient holy land of the Eastern Sea. Great Dragon, ancient celestial dynasty. Ancient mountain of the Yuezhou. Wang clan of the Eastern Prefecture. Wu clan of the Southern Prefecture. It's our turn. In the private room, Zhao Qiwu and the others from the Great Dragon ancient celestial dynasty were shocked. They all left their private rooms and walked towards the supreme private rooms on the 5th floor. Zhang Hanxian said excitedly, I heard that the person we're going to meet is the chief examiner of the Spiritual Formation Master competition. Now that we're going to meet him, do you think he'll take care of us during the Spiritual Formation Master competition? Lu Lishui said excitedly. It would be great if we could stay in the Temple of Spiritual Formation Masters. Mu Shaowan said. I heard that he'll be one of the 4 future leaders of the Temple of Spiritual Formation Masters. Li Muzi nodded and said, I heard that too. If we can establish a good relationship with such an important person, we'll definitely have a meteoric rise in the future. The group was obviously very excited. Zhao Linga said, There are so many powers that have come to meet him. It won't be easy to get him to take care of us. If you want to stay in the Temple of Spiritual Formation Masters, you'll have to be strong enough. Hua Xianyu nodded and said, Linger is right, so don't expect him to take care of us. Chapter 1254. A great elder named Wang Tianyao was waiting outside. He smiled and cupped his fists. There are too many people who want to see my young master right now, so the time is limited. I only have a quarter of an hour. Please forgive me. The higher-ups of the 5 factions obviously knew Wang Tianyao. At that moment, they heard something different. Wang Tianyao was a heaven-ranked array master, yet he had called the young master. At the very least, 2 important pieces of information had been revealed. First, the young master was a young cultivator. Second, Wang Tianyao and the others were very respectful to him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have called him young master. We know. Everyone cupped their fists. The great elder of Pengli, Su Daotu, asked, Brother Wang, is there anything the young master is afraid of? If we know in advance, we can avoid making that lord unhappy when we meet later. Wang Tianyao smiled. My young master is humble and gentle. He doesn't have any taboos. You don't have to worry. Tianyao, let them in. Wang Yangzi was Wang Tianyao's uncle. Wang Tianyao was one of the great elders. Wang Yangzi wanted to make Wang Tianyao his successor, but he hadn't told Lin Feng about it yet. Lin Feng looked at Wang Tianyao's face. Wang Yangzi was Wang Tianyao's uncle, and Wang Tianyao was one of the great elders. Wang Yangzi wanted to make Wang Tianyao his successor, but he hadn't told Lin Feng about it yet. Everyone, please come in. Wang Tianyao smiled. Soon after, the people of the 5 factions followed Wang Tianyao into the private room. It's him. They saw Lin Feng sitting in the main seat of the private room. The great elder of Pengli, Su Daotu, was shocked. In the East Sea world, the young elites of the various factions had disappeared without a trace while exploring the deep sea devil cave. These were the people Lin Feng had saved. Even Su Daotu's grandson, Su Jing, had been rescued by Lin Feng. Su Daotu had also met Lin Feng once. Su Daotu had never thought that the Lord's Spirit Array Master would be Lin Feng. Zhao Qiwu, Zhang Dalong, and Lu Shimo from the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty were similarly shocked. They naturally recognized Lin Feng with a single glance. Wasn't this the rogue cultivator who had joined their team and traversed the desolate ancient forest? At that time, the three of them did not pay attention to Lin Feng. After all, he was only a junior. How did this person become a big shot in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters in the blink of an eye? Why is this person so low-key? The three of them suddenly recalled that the great desolate python had clearly wanted to attack them, but had left in the end. At that time, the three of them thought that there was some prehistoric beast in the area that scared the giant python away. From the looks of it, Lin Feng must have scared off the great desolate python. The three of them could not help but laugh bitterly. Who would have thought that a rogue cultivator who had joined their team would have such an extraordinary identity? Now, they regretted that they had not befriended Lin Feng properly back then. "Everyone, this is our young master, Great Elder Lin Feng," Wang Tianyao introduced. "Lin Feng? He is Lin Feng?" Zhao Qiwu and the others were shocked. They had heard of this name long ago, but they did not expect to meet the person in question today. It was widely rumored that the 26-year-old Lin Feng not only had a battle prowess that was infinitely close to the rebirth state, but also had the inheritance of the Celestial Master Path. With the help of the inheritance of the Celestial Master Path, he could even fight against the rebirth state cultivator. Many people scoffed at such rumors, thinking that although Lin Feng was extraordinary, how could he fight against the rebirth state cultivator? After all, Lin Feng was just too young. But now, everyone believed it. If he did not have the ability, it would not be easy to make so many higher-ups of the Temple of Spirit Array Masters submit. Even if they supported Lin Feng because of some benefits, if Lin Feng was not enough to convince the masses, these higher-ups could make Lin Feng a mere figurehead. But in reality, these higher-ups looked at Lin Feng with respect. From this, it could be seen that the rumors about Lin Feng in the outside world were very likely true. The experts of the five great powers were all old and experienced, so naturally, they understood all the reasons in an instant. As for the younger generation, they were incomparably curious, wanting to see who exactly this legendary Lin Feng was. But now, they had been warned by their elders in advance that without orders, they could not raise their heads to look at that big shot. This was just like the officials of the secular world going to see the emperor. Without orders, they could only kneel on the ground with their heads lowered, unable to look at the emperor. Daring to secretly peek at the emperor was equivalent to offending the heavens. The experts of the five great powers suppressed the shock in their hearts, and hurriedly bowed to Lin Feng. The group of young cultivators behind them shouted in unison, "Greetings to Lin Gongzi." Then, they bowed to Lin Feng. Of course, they hoped that Lin Feng would remember them. If he helped them in the finals of the Spirit Array Masters competition, they would be able to stay in the Temple of Spirit Array Masters. Lin Feng said, "Everyone, there is no need to be so polite. I already know why you are here. If the disciples of your clans are outstanding enough, the Temple of Spirit Array Masters will be happy to nurture them." The experts of the five great powers were overjoyed and hurriedly thanked Lin Feng. "Why does this voice sound so familiar?" The young disciples of the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty looked at each other with incomparable puzzlement. Lu Lishui could not help but secretly look over. When he saw Lin Feng's figure, he was so frightened that he sat down on the ground. It's him! Lu Lishui's face was a little pale. He naturally knew Lin Feng and thought that Lin Feng was a loose cultivator, so he did not have a good impression of Lin Feng. He had even ridiculed him a few times. When they saw Lu Lishui lose his composure, Zhang Hanxian, Shen Maobai, Zhao Linger, Hua Xianyu, Li Muzi, Lu Shige, Mu Xiaowan, and Zhang Zixiao also looked over in confusion. When they saw Lin Feng, who was surrounded by countless important figures, they were stunned. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. How was this possible? Wasn't he called Lin Qing? How did he become Lin Feng? How did he become the important figure of the Temple of Spirit Array Masters? Everyone's heart seemed to be surging with monstrous waves. Originally, they had all thought that Lin Feng was a loose cultivator. Many of them looked down on Lin Feng. Before entering the desolation ancient forest, they had even wanted to chase Lin Feng away. They didn't want to bring a powerless loose cultivator like Lin Feng through the desolation ancient forest. As far as they were concerned, Lin Feng was just a burden. If Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu hadn't insisted, Zhang Hanxian and the others would never have allowed Lin Feng to join their team. But now, they knew that Lin Feng had such a terrifying identity. It was enough for them to look up to him. "Bastard, how dare you lose your composure like this? Hurry up and kowtow to Lin Gongzi and apologize." Lu Shige was almost angered to death when he saw Lu Lishui lose his composure. If Lu Lishui's loss of composure made Lin Feng unhappy and offended Lin Feng, it would be a huge blow to the Lu clan. The great dragon ancient immortal dynasty might even suppress the Lu clan in order to please Lin Feng. At that time, the Lu clan might even decline because of this. Once a large aristocratic family declined, it was common for the family to be destroyed and the people to be killed. Chapter 1255. In fact, Lu Shimo and the others didn't know that the younger generation of the great dragon ancient immortal dynasty had a conflict with Lin Feng. If they knew, they would probably be angered to death. "Brother Lin." "No, Lin Gongzi, please forgive me for my rudeness." Lu Lishui knelt on the ground, trembling in fear as he begged for mercy. Zhang Hanxian and the others were also trembling. They couldn't help but kneel on the ground and apologize to Lin Feng. "In the future, put away your pride and cultivate well." Lin Feng waved his hand. His words were not only for Lu Lishui, but also for Zhang Hanxian and the others. After all, these people had grown up with Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu. Although they had some opinions about them, they didn't like them very much. However, they still had to give Zhao Ling'er and Hua Xianyu some face. "Thank you, Lin Gongzi." Lu Lishui thanked him profusely. Zhang Hanxian and the others also let out a sigh of relief. Lin Feng continued to meet people from other powers and only returned in the wee hours of the morning. Spirit Array Master Temple. Willow Stone Castle's residence. Niu Dajiang woke up from his sleep. Looking at the simple and unadorned room, Niu Dajiang stared blankly for a moment before all kinds of memories flooded his mind. He remembered that he had been beaten up, and then a deputy temple master of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters came out to uphold justice and punish those young thugs. After that, he was carried into the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters on a stretcher. He had fallen asleep while lying on the stretcher and had only woken up now. "Second brother, you're awake." Seeing that Niu Dajiang had woken up, one of the cultivators who stayed behind to take care of Niu Dajiang was delighted. This cultivator was called Oxman, Niu Dajiang's cousin. Niu Dajiang sat up, and the pain in his body lessened a lot. "What happened when I fell asleep?" Niu Dajiang asked curiously. Oxman said, "The vice head ordered people to treat second brother's injuries and then arrange for us to rest. I stayed in this room to take care of you." Niu Dajiang said worriedly. "I don't know why the vice palace master is so nice to us. After all, we're just a group of independent cultivators." "Second brother, I heard that it's because of Brother Lin." "Brother Lin?" Niu Dajiang looked at Niu Ren in confusion. Oxman said, "I heard that Brother Lin's identity is not simple. Even the vice palace master has to be careful when talking about him." Niu Dajiang was shocked. That amiable and harmless-looking Brother Lin. He actually had such an extraordinary identity? This made Niu Dajiang feel like he was in a dream. They had always thought that Lin Feng was just a rogue cultivator. Oxman said, "Second brother, you say that Brother Lin is so amazing? Will they really introduce jobs to us? If we can become a guard in the Spirit Array Master Temple, we'll bring honor to our ancestors." Niu Dajiang's heart also moved. He said, "Let's talk about this after we meet Brother Lin." Oxman nodded. Not long after Murong Baishan and the others returned to the Spirit Array Master Temple, someone came to see Lin Feng. It was Lu Shibao's son, Lu Ning. Although he had never met Lu Shibao before, Lin Feng had heard of his name from Murong Baishan. "Why did your father ask you to come see me?" Lin Feng asked. Lu Ning said, It's like this. Something happened outside the Spirit Array Master Temple today. Lu Ning then told Lin Feng everything that had happened. After hearing the gist of what had happened, Lin Feng's expression darkened. He let Lu Ning lead the way. Soon, Lin Feng arrived at Lu Shibao's residence. Dong Yunhe and Lu Shibao were waiting for Lin Feng's arrival. You must be Grand Elder Lin, right? Lu Shibao smiled at Lin Feng and cupped his fists. Lin Feng said, Vice Temple Master Lu, I've admired you for a long time. Lu Shibao smiled and said, I wouldn't dare. I had some unpleasantness with Grand Elder Lin in the past. I hope Grand Elder Lin can forgive me. Lin Feng asked, Was there any unpleasantness? I don't remember. Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe were stunned for a moment, then smiled. Lu Shibao said, Haha, I'm old and muddle-headed. Please don't blame me, Grand Elder. Lin Feng waved his hand and said, Vice Temple Master, you're old but strong, so it's normal for you to remember things incorrectly. I usually remember things incorrectly as well, so I'm deeply moved. Lin Feng then looked at Dong Yunhe and smiled. You must be Vice Temple Master Dong? Yes. Dong Yunhe quickly cupped his fists. After they greeted each other, Dong Yunhe said, I'm sure Grand Elder Lin is worried about your friend. Let's take you to see him. Thank you. You're welcome, Grand Elder Lin. Lin Feng followed Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe to Niu Dajiang's room. When he saw Lin Feng, Niu Dajiang was extremely excited and struggled to get up from the bed. Lin Feng said, Brother Niu, you should lie down and rest. Brother Lin, I've finally met you. Niu Dajiang said excitedly. Lin Feng patted Niu Dajiang's shoulder and said, It's good that you're fine. Take this pill and you'll recover faster. After saying that, Lin Feng took out a healing pill that he had refined and gave it to Niu Dajiang. After taking the pill, Niu Dajiang's pale face regained some color. Rest for now. I'll come and see you tomorrow, Lin Feng said. Then, he left with Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe. When I came here, I heard about the situation from Lu Ning. Thank you, Vice Temple Master, for handling this matter impartially and saving my friend's life. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said. Lu Shibao said, As the Vice Temple Master in charge of law enforcement, it is my duty to enforce the law impartially, so there is no need for the Great Elder to thank me. Today, I invited the Great Elder here to discuss something with the Great Elder. Oh? What is it? Lin Feng asked. This isn't a good place to talk. Great Elder, please come with me, Lu Shibao said. Lin Feng nodded. In Lu Shibao, Dong Yunhe brought Lin Feng to a living room and set up a soundproof restriction. At that moment, Lu Shibao said, Amo Zijia's grandfather is the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Amo Lingchan. He has a high position and is arrogant and despotic. He has made the atmosphere of the temple city a mess. After I retire, he will take over my position. If he becomes the Vice Temple Master, who knows what will happen to the Temple of Spirit Array Masters in the future? Lin Feng said calmly. Vice Temple Master, you want to get rid of him? You want to arrange for a wise person to take over your position? But this Mo Lingchan has the backing of the Vice Palace Master, who is also difficult to deal with, so the Vice Palace Master wants me to deal with this Mo Lingchan together? It seems that this Mo Lingchan has one of the three successors behind him. Am I right? Lu Shibao was shocked. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng would be able to guess all his thoughts just by saying one sentence. He had even guessed the power behind Mo Lingchan. Lu Shibao and Dong Yunhe couldn't help but sigh. This boy was as smart as a demon. Chapter 1256. Since the Great Elder already knows of my plans, would you be willing to support me in getting rid of the Holy Temple's evil forces and returning peace to the Holy Temple? Lu Shibao asked. Lin Feng didn't directly answer Lu Shibao's question. Instead, he said, Vice Hall Master, can you tell me more about the other three? Lu Shibao replied. The first is called Dao Lingtian, and he has cultivated for 3,000 years. The second is called Sun Yumu, and she has cultivated for 800 years. The third is called Zhong Jinwang, and he has cultivated for 500 years. All three of them are close to becoming saint-ranked spirit array masters, and they might even be saint-ranked spirit array masters already. They don't often come to the Holy Temple, so they should be traveling around now, Lin Feng said. If my guess is correct, such an important position in the enforcement hall must be in the hands of Dao Lingtian, who has cultivated for the longest time. Lu Shibao nodded and said, It is indeed as the great elder guessed. Dao Lingtian has cultivated for the longest time, and he has the most vice hall masters and great elders supporting him. Lin Feng was a bit confused as he said, There are 5 vice hall masters supporting Dao Lingtian, and 4 vice hall masters supporting me. You 3 vice hall masters are supporting Zhu Gujian, so there are already 12 vice hall masters supporting Sun Yumu and Zhong Xinhuang. Could it be that none of the vice hall masters are supporting Sun Yumu and Zhong Xinhuang? If no one is supporting them, how did they become the successors? Dong Yin has said. Among the 4 saint-ranked ancestors, there are Sun and Zhong Xinhuang. Lin Feng nodded. So they were the descendants of the ancestors. As a descendant of the old ancestor, coupled with his outstanding talent, it was normal for him to be chosen as the successor. Lin Feng said with a faint smile. I don't understand why you would choose Zhu Gujian. Why don't you just rely on Sun Yumu and Zhong Xinhuang? Lu Shibao said. Great Elder, you might not know this, but Sun Yumu and Zhong Xinhuang were sent to the outer realm by the 2 ancestors a long time ago to train. We didn't even have the chance to meet them, Lin Feng said. As the descendants of the ancestors, they became the successors of the Holy Temple without any setbacks. They really do need some training. Yes, in order to train them, the ancestor threw them to an extremely dangerous and chaotic planet. Sun Yumu has been gone for more than 700 years, and Zhong Xinhuang has been gone for more than 400 years. I've heard that the planet is full of war and slaughter, but the 2 young masters have survived countless dangerous situations. I think they'll be back soon. Dong Yin has sighed. Lin Feng was stupefied. He hadn't thought that would happen. It seemed like the 4 ancestors were doing their best to train their successors. Lu Shibao continued. The 5 deputy temple masters supported Dao Lingtian a long time ago. Dao Lingtian fought his way out of the many talented disciples and became the first successor, Lin Feng said. Since Dao Lingtian fought his way out of the encirclement and became the first successor, that means there should be more than one competitor. You all had supporters at that time, right? But then your supporters were eliminated by Dao Lingtian? You all must have had some unhappiness with Dao Lingtian at that time. Since Dao Lingtian allowed Mo Lingchan to do whatever he wanted, he must be a very strong and protective master. To a servant, a master like that is the best, but to other people, Dao Lingtian doesn't know right from wrong. People like that don't know what's right and what's wrong. Therefore, you don't want to take risks and follow Dao Lingtian. He might take revenge on you. Lu Shibao and Dong Yinhe smiled bitterly and nodded. Now that they had interacted with Lin Feng, they knew how intelligent Lin Feng was. Many things, Lin Feng's deductions were basically correct without them saying anything. Lin Feng continued. Actually, I admire the 2 deputy temple masters. Before retiring, they actually chose to drag Mo Lingchan down. That's like offending Dao Lingtian. Mo Lingchan will only harm the temple, he won't be of any help. I also want to get rid of him, but if I get involved, the risk is too great. Is it worth it to offend Dao Lingtian? Lu Shibao said. Before the 4 ancestors leave Tianwu continent, they will redistribute their power. Each successor can nominate 3 deputy temple masters, but the positions of the 12 deputy temple masters are different. They are all deputy temple masters, but some have high positions, while others have low positions. As the previous deputy temple master, he has the right to make suggestions. For example, I can suggest to the 4 ancestors that Great Elder Lin nominate someone to inherit my position. My position is in charge of the Law Enforcement Hall, the Magical Ability Pavilion, and the Mission Hall, 3 extremely important departments. If I can control them, I will have great power, said Lin Feng smiling. If Mo Lingchan is defeated, then Mo Lingchan will become the vice leader, right? Said Lin Feng smiling. That's a good thing, but if Mo Lung-chan is defeated, then Mo Lung-chan will become the vice leader, right? Yes. Lu Shirbao nodded. Dong Yinha said, There are 5 most important positions in the temple: the Sacred Tower, the Spiritual Array Pavilion, the Law Enforcement Hall, the Ancestral Temple, and the Tai Yuan Immortal Realm. The Sacred Tower will definitely belong to Sun Yimou, and the Tai Yuan Immortal Realm will belong to Zhong Zhenhuang. Lin Feng didn't need to ask why. He could guess. The Holy Tower and the Tai Yuan Celestial Realm were too important. They should be in the hands of Ancestor Sun Dao Ming and Ancestor Zhong Xingyuan respectively. They passed them on to their descendants, Sun Yimou and Zhong Zhenhuang. Dong Yunha continued, There are still 3 positions left. The Law Enforcement Hall and the Spiritual Array Pavilion will fall into Dao Lingtian's hands, and the Ancestral Temple will be under your control, Great Elder. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and said, I will be in charge of the Ancestral Temple? Lu Shirbao and Dong Yinha nodded. Lin Feng couldn't help but shake his head. If that was the case, then his power would be far less than the other 3. Originally, the Ancestral Temple and the Law Enforcement Hall belonged to the same person, but Dao Lingtian was too powerful. He took away the Law Enforcement Hall's important position, leaving only the Ancestral Temple for the 4th successor. Lu Shirbao said. Lin Feng said, It seems like the division of power in the temple is also filled with intrigue. The 4 ancestors don't care about it. The 4 ancestors don't care about this kind of thing. The strongest person has the most power. This is the rule of the temple. Dong Yinha said. Lu Shirbao said, We plan to hold a meeting of the Vice Temple Masters. When the time comes, I will impeach Mo Lingchan. As long as half of the Vice Temple Masters agree, we can report Mo Lingchan's removal to the 4 ancestors. Lin Feng rubbed his chin and said, If Mo Lingchan retires, who will be the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master? Wang Tianyao is the Law Enforcement Hall's Vice Hall Master. He's very strong, and he's the son of Vice Temple Master Wang Yangzi. He's very loyal to the temple. I think he can be the next Hall Master. Lu Shirbao said. Lu Shirbao obviously knew that Wang Tianyao was Lin Feng's subordinate. Obviously, Lu Shirbao had already stated his conditions. Lin Feng would support him in impeaching Mo Lingchan, and he would help Lin Feng take over the Law Enforcement Hall. In the future, Wang Tianyao would be in charge of the Law Enforcement Hall, Mission Hall, and Ability Pavilion. Chapter 1257. Of course, Lin Feng would also have to face the situation of offending Dao Lingtian, but the struggle for power had always been one of mutual deception, and Lin Feng did not want to be a mere figurehead. Dao Lingtian had taken away the Law Enforcement Hall that originally belonged to him, and Lin Feng was also extremely dissatisfied with Dao Lingtian. Since Lin Feng had already decided to become one of the 4 successors of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, then he had to do his best to seize as much power as possible. What was the point of being a figurehead of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters? Lin Feng said, I will mention this matter to Vice Head Murong Baishan and the others. Great Elder is truly righteous. In the future, the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters will sing the praises of Great Elder, and the future generations will definitely remember it. If not for Great Elder's wise decision today, the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters might have fallen from prosperity to decline. Lu Shirbao cupped his fists and said. Lin Feng said, Vice Head, there is no need to make me sound so noble. The reason why I helped Vice Head was because I did not want the Law Enforcement Hall to be controlled by someone like Mo Lingchan, and also because the Law Enforcement Hall originally belonged to me in the future. Dao Lingtian forcefully took it away, so how could I let him have his way? What belongs to me, no one can take it away. Let's end our conversation here today. Lu Shirbao and Dong Yinha personally sent Lin Feng off. The next day, Niu Dajiang's body had almost recovered, and Lin Feng had Murong Baishan arrange for Niu Dajiang and the others to be guards of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. The group of people was wild with joy. They did not even dare to believe that they had actually become guards of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. This made everyone feel like they were dreaming. Big Black, give me a slap. I want to see if I'm dreaming, Oxman said to a dark-skinned man beside him. Slap! The muscular man called Big Black slapped Oxman's face, causing Oxman to see stars. It's true, it's all true, Oxman shouted excitedly. Naylan Yuanfang said, Brother Dajiang, in the future your task will be to patrol at night, and you'll be paid 1,500 top-level spirit stones every year. If you perform well, you'll be promoted, and you'll be paid even more. You can start to bring your family members to live with you. Each of you will be given a courtyard. Of course, if you don't want to bring your family members to live with you, you can save up spirit stones for a few years, and then buy a small city to settle your family members. Every year, you'll have 3 months of vacation, and you can go back to accompany them. Niu Dajiang and the others were incomparably excited, because the treatment of the Spirit Array Master Temple was too good. No wonder countless people racked their brains to enter the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Niu Dajiang and the others were glad that they knew Lin Feng. If they didn't know Lin Feng, how could they, as rogue cultivators, enter the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters? Niu Dajiang and the others quickly went to thank Lin Feng. Lin Feng took the time to meet them, and Niu Dajiang returned Lin Feng's Great Elder Jade Tablet to Lin Feng. Lin Feng encouraged Niu Dajiang and the others, telling them to work hard, and that the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters would not treat them badly. After Niu Dajiang and the others left, Murong Baishan, Wan Yangi, He Daotong, and Tan Chuduan came to Lin Feng. Lin Feng told the 4 deputy temple masters about what Dong Yunha had told him yesterday at Willowstone Castle. Originally, Wan Yangi wanted to mention to Lin Feng, hoping that Lin Feng could nominate Wan Tianyao as a deputy temple master in the future. Now, the person directly benefiting from Willowstone Castle's impeachment of Mo Lingchan was his son, Wan Tianyao. Therefore, Wan Yangi naturally supported Willowstone Castle's decision to impeach Mo Lingchan. Murong Baishan said, I originally wanted to mention the matter of the enforcement hall to the Great Elder, but since Willowstone Castle has already proposed it, I also agree with Willowstone Castle's suggestion. The enforcement hall is too important, and it originally belonged to the Great Elder, but now it has been forcefully taken away by Dao Lingtian. The Temple of Spiritual Array Masters is also a place where the strong prey on the weak. If you shrink back now, I'm afraid that you will become a laughingstock in the future. When the time comes, the Great Elder will have no real power in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Lin Feng nodded and said, If that's the case, then when the Deputy Temple Master Conference convenes, you can discuss Willowstone Castle's suggestion. Murong Baishan and the others nodded. Lin Feng continued, When will the 4 ancestors come out of seclusion? Tan Chuduan said. The 4 ancestors are currently in seclusion in the extreme Yuan Immortal Realm. They should be coming out soon. In the afternoon, 2 middle-aged men wearing Taoist robes walked out of the extreme Yuan Immortal Realm. They were cultivators who served the 4 ancestors. Although they didn't have any official positions in the temple, their statuses were extremely high. Today, the 2 of them had come to pass on the final decree of the 4 ancestors. They had appointed Lin Feng as the head examiner of the 3,000 provinces finals. Very quickly, news of this matter spread throughout the temple. With this matter settled, Lin Feng's status as the 4th successor was confirmed. After the 4 ancestors came out of seclusion, they would probably summon Lin Feng to officially announce this matter. Many people came to congratulate Lin Feng. Lin Feng, however, was rather calm. At night, someone came to visit Lin Feng. It was the enforcement hall's hall master, Mo Lingchan. It was Lin Feng's first time meeting Mo Lingchan. Mo Lingchan was thin and had a sinister look in his eyes. He gave off a very uncomfortable feeling. When he saw Lin Feng, he smiled and cupped his fists, saying, Grand Elder Lin, it's an honor to meet you. Lin Feng also cupped his fists, saying, May I know why Hall Master Mo is here? Mo Lingchan said, I already know that Willow Castle is looking for Grand Elder Lin. Lord Dao Lingtian also knows. Lin Feng frowned slightly, saying, What does Hall Master Mo want to say? Mo Lingchan said, Lord Dao Lingtian wants me to pass on a message to Grand Elder Lin. There's no harm in saying it, Lin Feng said. Amo Lingchan continued. Sun Yumu and Zhong Jinghuang are both descendants of the ancestors. They have known each other for many years and have been training on the same planet for so long. I'm afraid that their friendship runs deep. Lord Dao Lingtian and Grand Elder Lin, on the other hand, do not have a strong background. They both relied on their own abilities to reach their current positions. Lord Dao Lingtian wants to join forces with Grand Elder Lin, but he won't have to fight alone against Sun Yumu and Zhong Jinghuang. Lin Feng knocked on the table, saying, That's it. And Mo Lingchan nodded, saying, Grand Elder Lin is a smart man. I'm sure you understand Lord Dao Lingtian's intentions. Lin Feng sneered in his heart. This Dao Lingtian was going too far. He had sent Mo Lingchan to talk about this matter. If the two of them really joined forces, then Willow Castle's impeachment of Mo Lingchan would naturally cease. Mo Lingchan would still be free and unpunished. However, Dao Lingtian did not mention the matter of the enforcement hall's hall master. If Dao Lingtian was sincere, then he should have returned the power of the enforcement hall to Lin Feng. However, since Dao Lingtian did not mention this matter, it meant that he did not have any sincerity. Or perhaps Dao Lingtian was too used to being high and mighty. Did he think that Lin Feng would listen to him just because he said something? I still have some matters to attend to, so I won't keep Hall Master Mo any longer, Lin Feng said indifferently. Mo Lingchan's expression darkened. Lin Feng was already sending him off, but he did not hear the answer he wanted. Grand Elder Lin should know our Lord's abilities. Joining forces with our Lord is a win-win situation. Otherwise, Mo Lingchan narrowed his eyes at Lin Feng, his tone turning cold and threatening. Chapter 1258. Lin Feng looked at Mo Lingchan with a faint smile. What if I don't? I'm not good at understanding things, so I hope Hall Leader Mo can explain clearly. Mo Lingchan frowned. He wondered if Lin Feng was playing dumb, but seeing Lin Feng's sincere expression, Mo Lingchan knew that this was not an act. He said, Only by learning how to behave can you survive in the Saint Palace. If you can't learn how to behave, the Saint Palace will eat you up without spitting out your bones. Hall Leader Mo, are you threatening me? Lin Feng looked at Mo Lingchan and asked. Mo Lingchan said, It's not a threat. It's just a piece of advice. Lin Feng stood up and said indifferently, But I think Hall Leader Mo is threatening me. Hall Leader Mo, do you know the consequences of threatening me? Mo Lingchan frowned and said in a low voice, What? Could it be that Great Elder Lin wants to deal with me? You're right. Lin Feng threw a punch at Mo Lingchan. He said, Whoever dares to threaten me, I'll let him know how to write the word regret. Mo Lingchan was shocked. He didn't expect Lin Feng to attack him so quickly. Mo Lingchan had Dao Lingtian's support in the Saint Palace, so he was used to being arrogant. Who would dare to attack him? But Lin Feng dared to do it today. Mo Lingchan's strength was not weak. He was at the 8th layer of the life and death realm. Facing Lin Feng's attack, his face sank. He raised his right hand and was about to attack Lin Feng. But Lin Feng's attack was too fast. With a bang, the punch landed on Mo Lingchan's face and sent him flying. Mo Lingchan's body flew dozens of meters away, blood spurting out of his mouth. His teeth were all broken by Lin Feng, and he spat out blood. Plop! Mo Lingchan fell to the ground. Lin Feng, you brat, you're courting death! Mo Lingchan roared angrily. His loud roar immediately startled everyone. Isn't that Mo Lingchan's voice? Lin Feng is now the 4th successor. His position is even more honorable than the Deputy Palace Master. Mo Lingchan actually dared to curse him like this. What happened? Why is this person so exasperated? Whoosh! Whoosh! Soon, one figure after another shot out and quickly rushed towards the small courtyard where Lin Feng lived. When everyone arrived, they saw that Mo Lingchan had taken out a demigod-level treasure. That treasure was called the Stellar Sun Moon Sword, and it slashed directly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He stepped forward and lifted his left hand. Monstrous spiritual energy gushed out and transformed into runes. All of the runes surged toward the demigod weapon, Sun Moon Star Sword. In a flash, Lin Feng's half-godly weapon, the Sun and Moon Star Sword, was oppressed. Lin Feng had destroyed Mo Ling Chan's godly awareness. Ah! My stellar Sun Moon Sword! Lin Feng, you bastard! How dare you steal my treasure? You'll die a horrible death! Mo Ling Chan's godly awareness had been destroyed. His face was extremely pale, but his eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Lin Feng and cursed loudly. Hall Leader Mo, you're really ungentlemanly. How could someone like you become the Hall Leader of the Hall of Law Enforcement? You're really surprising me. Lin Feng rushed forward and threw another punch at Mo Ling Chan. Wuji godly arts of the universe! Mo Ling Chan roared furiously. He kept making hand seals. Then, a terrifying chi emerged from Mo Ling Chan's body. A gigantic ball of energy condensed in Mo Ling Chan's body. He released the ball of energy and threw it at Lin Feng. The light of a firefly dares to compete with the light of the moon? Lin Feng looked indifferent. His punch didn't slow down at all. It destroyed Mo Ling Chan's godly abilities in an instant, and then he threw another punch at Mo Ling Chan's face. Mo Ling Chan's body was sent flying more than 10 meters away. Before Mo Ling Chan could get up, Lin Feng had already rushed over. Bang! 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 He kicked Mo Ling Chan one after another. How was this a fight between experts? It was more like a fight between two ordinary people, and one of them was beaten up by the other. Bastard, I'm going to kill you! Mo Ling Chan roared furiously. What a filthy mouth! Lin Feng sneered and kicked Mo Ling Chan's mouth. Crack! Mo Ling Chan's mouth was crushed by Lin Feng's kick. Mo Ling Chan opened his mouth to speak but couldn't. It was too cruel. Many people felt their scalps go numb when they saw Lin Feng beat up Mo Ling Chan. Many people had heard that Lin Feng was a devil incarnate who feared nothing. Now they finally saw it for themselves. However, when they saw Mo Ling Chan being beaten half to death, many people gloated. Mo Ling Chan was arrogant and domineering. Many people hated him, but they didn't dare to say anything. Now that they saw Lin Feng beat Mo Ling Chan half to death, they felt relieved. Stop! At this moment, a cold voice was heard. Then 5 figures flew over. Yen, Fan, Zhou, Wu, Qi, the 5 vice leaders are here. Many people exclaimed. These 5 vice palace masters were vice palace masters who supported Dao Lingtian. When they saw Mo Ling Chan's miserable state, their faces turned green with anger. The other 7 vice leaders also arrived quickly. When they saw Mo Ling Chan lying on the ground and howling in pain, they were shocked. Then they smiled bitterly. Murong Baishan, Lu Shibao, and the others didn't expect Lin Feng to beat Mo Ling Chan like this. Great Elder Lin, no matter how powerful you are, you shouldn't treat a cultivator of the holy temple like this. Moreover, the one you almost killed was a hall leader, Yan Mingyu shouted. Asked the vice leader Yan Mingyu. That person was trying to oppress Lin Feng, and he was trying to punish Lin Feng as if he was a virtuous person. Murong Baishan and the others' expressions changed. They were about to retort when Lin Feng waved at them, indicating that they didn't need to do anything. Lin Feng said indifferently, I didn't bully anyone. Mo Ling Chan came to me and talked nonsense. I was so angry that I beat him up. Yan Mingyu said angrily. You beat a hall leader to this state just because of a dispute of words. Great Elder Lin, don't you think you've gone too far? How is this different from disregarding human life? We will definitely report this matter to the 4 ancestors and let them decide, Lin Feng said. Mo Ling Chan told me that Dao Lingtian wanted to join hands with me because he felt that Sun Yumu and Zhong Jinghuang would definitely form an alliance. If we don't join hands, we won't be their opponents. Hearing this, Yan Mingyu, who was standing on the moral high ground to punish Lin Feng, twitched his mouth. Fan, Zhou, Wu, and Qi's expressions also became very unsightly. Lin Feng didn't care about their expressions and continued. When I heard Mo Ling Chan's words, I was angry. In the future, Dao Lingtian, Sun Yimu, and Zhong Jinghuang will be in charge of the Holy Temple of Spiritual Arrays. Naturally, we will work together and lead the Holy Temple to glory. This Mo Ling Chan dared to drive a wedge between us. Think about it, if the four of us who will be in charge of the Holy Temple of Spiritual Arrays fight each other to the death, I'm afraid the Holy Temple of Spiritual Arrays will fall apart. This person has such malicious intentions, how can I forgive him? That's why I couldn't control my anger and hit him. If the Vice Palace Masters think that I'm wrong for hitting Mo Ling Chan in a fit of rage, then I'm willing to apologize to the four ancestors. Yan Mingyu and the other four's expressions were very unsightly. How could they say that Lin Feng was wrong? Mo Ling Chan's act of sowing discord was a serious crime. Yan Mingyu and the other four knew that Lin Feng was just adding oil to the fire to slander Mo Ling Chan. Even so, they had to swallow their pride and swallow their pride. Chapter 1259. The news that Mo Ling Chan was almost beaten to death by the demon king Lin Feng spread quickly in the temple. It didn't take long for everyone to know about it. The next day, the 12 deputy temple masters held a meeting to discuss how to deal with Mo Ling Chan. Lu Shirbao impeached Mo Ling Chan. There were 5 crimes. First, he was arrogant and domineering when he was the head of the law enforcement hall, which caused the temple to complain. Second, he allowed his disciples to do whatever they wanted, which seriously damaged the temple's reputation. Third, he didn't meddle in the affairs of the temple, which caused the atmosphere in the temple to deteriorate. Fourth, he used his power to amass wealth. Fifth, he sowed discord among the 4 successors. His intentions were vicious. The 5 deputy temple masters, Yan, Fan, Zhou, Wu, and Qi, remained silent because they knew there was nothing they could do. The suggestion to remove Mo Ling Chan from his position in the Law Enforcement Hall and appoint Wan Tianyao as the Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master, and to hand over the entire matter to the 4 ancestors for the final decision, was approved by 7 deputy Hall Masters. The 5 deputy temple masters didn't agree. With 7 votes against 5, it was passed. At this time, the highly anticipated finals of the 3,000 prefectures began. The first preliminary round of the finals was a 12-round elimination system. The first round was to draw a low-grade Mystic class array. The second round was to draw a mid-grade Mystic class array. The rounds increased. The 12th round was to draw a high-grade Mystic class array. Those who passed all 12 rounds would participate in the final 2 rounds of the finals. The first round of the finals. Every contestant would draw a low-grade Earth class array. And they had to draw it in a set time. The shorter the time, the better the result. The second round of the finals. The contestants who passed could draw their own arrays. This time, there was no level restriction. The higher the level, the better. Of course, this was on the premise that they could draw it in a set time. The examiner of the competition would assess the score of the second round according to the level of the array and the time needed. This time, the Spirit Array Masters would recruit 3,000 outstanding array geniuses from the 3,000 prefectures. There were more than 500,000 array masters from the 3,000 prefectures, but only 3,000 were recruited. It was obvious how fierce the competition was. When the first round of the preliminaries began, Lin Feng, as the head examiner, naturally had to be present. Heavens, isn't that head examiner too young? That examiner is Lin Feng, whose name shakes the 3,000 provinces. What? Is he the rumored Lin Feng? He's so handsome. He's already the head examiner at such a young age. It is said that he has already been chosen as the 4th successor by the 4 ancestors of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. In the future, he will wield great power in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Ah? He's that powerful? Countless Spirit Array casters who were participating in the finals were discussing among themselves. Many female Spirit Array casters were even flirtatious, hoping to attract Lin Feng's attention. If they could hook up with Lin Feng, wouldn't entering the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters be as easy as saying a word? Lin Feng said in a clear voice. In order to participate in the finals held by the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, everyone has come from different prefectures. Seeing everyone's enthusiasm, the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters is extremely happy. This time, the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters will recruit 3,000 people. Those who can successfully break through will receive the best training, the strongest inheritance, and the best resources. The Temple of Spiritual Array Masters has 3,000 archaic Great Formation inheritances waiting for everyone to study and learn. However, the prerequisite is that you can stand out among more than 500,000 people. I won't say any more superfluous words. For your own sake, make good use of this opportunity, and do everything possible to join the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. After Lin Feng's speech, many people were incomparably excited. Joining the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters and obtaining the best inheritance was something that many people dreamed of. Furthermore, studying in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters would allow one to enter the sacred tower to cultivate. That was a treasure that could change the flow of time. Many Spiritual Array Masters had spent too much time studying Spiritual Array Masters, resulting in their cultivation not being able to improve. However, if they could enter the sacred tower to cultivate, they would not have to worry about their cultivation not being able to keep up. The competition was in full swing. After many rounds of selection, the top 3,000 were finally selected. Lin Feng checked the list and found that Zhao Ling'er had been shortlisted. She was ranked 2,120. The rest of the people from the Great Dragon Ancient Immortal Dynasty had failed to be selected. Lin Feng added Hua Xianyu's name to the shortlist. Hua Xianyu, who was originally extremely disappointed, was informed by an examiner of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters that she had been accepted by the chief examiner. Hua Xianyu was extremely excited. Zhang Han Xian and the others looked at Hua Xianyu enviously. Now, everyone was deeply regretting it. If they had been on good terms with Lin Feng back then like Hua Xianyu, they might have been accepted by Lin Feng as an exception. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. No matter how regretful they were, it was impossible to give them a chance to start over. Soon, the results of Mo Lingchan's punishment were out. The four patriarchs stripped Mo Lingchan of his position as the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall and demoted him to an ordinary deacon. Lin Feng was not surprised by the punishment. The four patriarchs were obviously trying to find balance by doing this. They were giving face to Dao Ling Tian. Lin Feng entered the sacred tower to cultivate. One of Lin Feng's main goals for coming to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters this time was to enter the sacred tower to cultivate. The sacred tower was located in the depths of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. It was a stone tower that was 99 floors tall. It was said that this was an extremely heaven-defying Dharma treasure. However, no one could obtain this Dharma treasure now. The sacred tower controlled the flow of time differently. From the first floor to the 20th floor, 1 year in the outside world would be 3 years in the sacred tower. From the 21st floor to the 40th floor, 1 year in the outside world would be 5 years in the sacred tower. From the 41st floor to the 60th floor, 1 year in the outside world would be 7 years in the sacred tower. From the 61st floor to the 80th floor, 1 year in the outside world would be 9 years in the sacred tower. From the 81st floor to the 99th floor, 1 year in the outside world would be 12 years in the sacred tower. Lin Feng came to a stone room on the 90th floor to cultivate. Time passed quickly. Cultivation knew no time. When Lin Feng first entered the sacred tower, it was early autumn in the outside world. Now, another early autumn had arrived. An entire year had passed in the outside world. Lin Feng, who had been cultivating in the sacred tower, had already experienced 12 years. In these 12 years, he had calmed down and comprehended various divine abilities, studied the celestial master sex inheritance, studied alchemy, and cultivated his soul. 12 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the outside world, Murong Baishan, Wan Yangi, He Daotong, and Tan Chuan were gathered together. Murong Baishan said, "The Grand Elder has been in the sacred tower for a full year. According to the flow of time in the sacred tower, 12 years have passed in the sacred tower. Now that the 4 old ancestors are about to come out of seclusion, should we summon the Grand Elder? Rumble. As soon as Murong Baishan finished speaking, thunder rumbled outside. The 4 of them were shocked. They hurriedly went out and saw endless thunderclouds rolling in the sky. Lightning dragons and snakes swam in the clouds. Heavens, this is a lightning tribulation! A lightning tribulation that covers a radius of 100 miles. Who is it that attracted such a heaven-defying lightning tribulation? Countless people rushed out of the temple city, looking at the lightning tribulation in the sky with horrified expressions on their faces. I thought I would be able to write 8 chapters today, but because I went to practice driving in the afternoon, I was delayed the entire afternoon and only managed to write the 7th chapter now. I'm too tired. Old Manta needs to rest, so I'll write 7 chapters today. I'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow is May 1st, Labor Day. I wish everyone a happy Labor Day. Chapter 1260. The lightning tribulation's momentum was vast, and it startled too many people, causing them to be moved and shocked. How heaven-defying must this person be to be able to summon such a massive lightning tribulation that covered an area of 100 miles? It was unbelievable. However, all of this was real. Swish! Swish! In a stone room in the 99th floor of the Holy Pagoda, Lin Feng opened his eyes. Kulpa lights were flashing between his eyebrows. He's about to undergo the Kulpa! Lin Feng walked out of the Holy Pagoda and into the sky. Above him, millions and millions of bolts of Kulpa lightning were intertwining. Those bolts of Kulpa lightning seemed like they could descend at any moment and attack Lin Feng. Look, it's Mr. Lin! Many people were astonished. Lin Feng was the one who had summoned such a powerful Kulpa lightning. But when they thought about it, it made sense. Such a powerful Kulpa lightning was unprecedented. Only someone as powerful as Lin Feng could summon such a terrifying Kulpa lightning. Lin Feng left the holy shrine city. He wanted to go to the forest to undergo the Kulpa tribulation. If he did that in the holy shrine city, the holy shrine city would be destroyed. Quick, let's go and see! Many people shouted and followed closely behind. They wanted to see Lin Feng undergo the Kulpa lightning. Such a powerful Kulpa lightning! Let's see how he'll die! Someone sneered. The Kulpa lightning in front of them was terrifying. Many people thought that it would be extremely difficult to succeed. But the 4 deputy temple leaders and the great elders who had joined Lin Feng weren't worried at all. They knew that Lin Feng had cultivated the catastrophe technique. It was difficult to injure him with 1,000 kulpas, and it was difficult to destroy him with 10,000 kulpas. Loud rumbling sounds resounded through the clouds. Above the desolation ancient forest, lightning flashed, and the entire desolation ancient forest became quiet at this moment. Millions and millions of bolts of lightning seemed to be able to destroy the world. Lin Feng was standing in the air, allowing the thunderbolts to strike him. The first bolt of Kulpa lightning descended from the sky. It was as gigantic as a mountain. It moved straight towards Lin Feng. It was terrifying. Many people were so scared that their faces turned pale. This kind of mountain tribulation was the last lightning tribulation that appeared in many cultivators' tribulations. But now, Lin Feng's first lightning tribulation was actually a mountain tribulation. Such a terrifying lightning tribulation was really too shocking. Lin Feng didn't try to dodge the lofty mountain Kulpa. The destructive lofty mountain Kulpa bombarded Lin Feng's body. Unexpectedly, it was unable to cause any harm to Lin Feng. Isn't this body a little too powerful? Countless people were shocked. It was simply inconceivable that his physical body could resist such a powerful lightning tribulation. Rumor has it that Master Lin relied on the strength of his physical body to reach the 41st step of the Prodigy Arena. His physical body is strong enough to become a god. His physical body is probably strong enough to kill a true dragon, a Qilin, or a Swanee. Many nodded and looked up at Lin Feng, who was drowned in endless thunder and lightning. Bolts of lightning struck down one after another. Normally, cultivators would undergo 9 lightning tribulations. But Lin Feng's lightning tribulation seemed to be endless. It kept striking down. Lin Feng used his physical body to resist 49 bolts of lightning tribulation. After Lin Feng's body absorbed the power of the lightning tribulation, it continuously tempered Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng's body became even stronger. Lightning tribulation tempering the body. There was no better way to temper the body than this. However, when other cultivators underwent their lightning tribulation, it was as if they were treading on thin ice. Who would dare to use their physical body to resist the power of the lightning tribulation? Perhaps only Lin Feng, whose physical body was strong enough to kill a true dragon, would dare to use the lightning tribulation to temper his body during his lightning tribulation. Soon, the 50th bolt of lightning tribulation descended. A lightning phoenix cried out in the sky and pounced on Lin Feng. Heavens! It's a divine beast tribulation! This is already the 50th bolt of lightning tribulation. How many lightning tribulations will he undergo? Many people cried out in shock, their faces drained of color. The shock caused by Lin Feng's lightning tribulation was too great. These cultivators had never seen someone undergo 50 bolts of lightning tribulation. Moreover, thunderclouds were constantly gathering in the sky. This meant that an even more powerful lightning tribulation was still brewing. Obviously, Lin Feng was not going to simply undergo 50 bolts of lightning tribulation. There should be more lightning tribulations coming up. Facing the divine beast tribulation, Lin Feng stepped forward and waved his right fist, shattering the void. Bang! The lightning phoenix was shattered by Lin Feng's punch. The power of the lightning tribulation was completely devoured by Lin Feng, and the bolts of lightning tribulation turned into majestic dermic power. The dermic power in Lin Feng's body became stronger and stronger. His Dan Sea continued to expand and was boundless. The golden sea was boiling. This was a sea condensed from dermic power. The dermic power in his Dan Sea moved slightly, as if it could shatter the stars in the sky. The laws in Lin Feng's body also began to transform. In the yin-yang realm, Tao marks would condense. In the creation realm, Tao marks would transform into dermic powers. Breaking through the life and death realm, the dermic powers in his body would further transform. From the creation dermic powers, they would transform into the life and death dermic powers. After the transformation, the dermic powers would become even more powerful and mysterious. Boom, boom, boom. After the lightning phoenix tribulation was shattered, an even more powerful lightning tribulation came down. However, no lightning tribulation could harm Lin Feng. Any lightning tribulation that came down was shattered by Lin Feng's fist. Too savage. Lightning tribulation can be transcended like this? Countless cultivators stared at Lin Feng, dumbfounded. As for Murong Baishan and the other vice palace masters who had joined Lin Feng, the Grand Elders, they were very excited. The stronger Lin Feng was, the happier they would be. Moreover, they had received the minor tribulation transcending technique from Lin Feng. Now that they saw Lin Feng really ignore the lightning tribulation, did that not mean that they, who had cultivated the minor tribulation transcending technique, would be able to transcend tribulation like Lin Feng in the future? Thinking of this, they felt waves of excitement. The lightning tribulation grew stronger and stronger, and the ones that came later were even more terrifying. Waves of lightning crashed down. Thousands of soldiers and horses were formed. The phantom of a young great emperor appeared. All kinds of legendary lightning tribulations appeared one after another. However, no matter how powerful the lightning tribulation was, it couldn't harm Lin Feng in the slightest. Lin Feng's iron fist shattered billions of lightning tribulations. Who can stop me? After breaking through 108 lightning tribulations, Lin Feng soared into the sky and punched out 36 times in a row. High in the sky, the waves of lightning that covered a radius of 100 miles were blasted away. The magic power in Lin Feng's body erupted like a flood, surging through his body. Finally, it all merged into his Dan Sea. In Lin Feng's body, strands of life and death law condensed and settled in his dantian, reversing life and death. I've broken through. Lin Feng stood in the void. As he blinked, two small worlds seemed to occupy his eyes. Lin Feng raised his right hand, and a loud sound shook the sky. It was as if a heavenly war god was beating a war drum. At this moment, Lin Feng felt that his every move contained a terrifying power that could shatter heaven and earth. Chapter 1261. Sacred Palace, Lin Feng's residence. The 4 vice palace masters and many grand elders came to congratulate Lin Feng. Even Willow Rock Fort, Dong Yunhe, and Sun Yongchang came to congratulate Lin Feng. Lin Feng was already strong enough. Now that he had broken through to the life and death realm, how terrifying would he be? It was unimaginable. Everyone knew that Lin Feng's rise was unstoppable. Now Willow Rock Fort, Dong Yunhe, Sun Yongchang, and the dozens of grand elders under them all had the intention of submitting to Lin Feng. At night, Murong Baishan came to Lin Feng and informed him that the 4 old ancestors were about to come out of seclusion. Lin Feng nodded, then asked, "Did anything important happen during the year I was in seclusion?" Murong Baishan shook his head and said, "Nothing important, but I heard that the Flame Saint appeared in the central continent. That Flame Saint seemed to have followed you for a period of time?" Lin Feng's information was no longer a secret. His rise had been thoroughly investigated by many factions. In the past, Lin Feng was accompanied by a fire Qilin, the Flame Saint. It was a famous expert of the demonic beast race, but its divine power had been devoured by the sage Emperor Stone. Later on, it turned into a mortal beast and followed Lin Feng for many years. Although the fire Qilin wasn't very reliable, it had been of great help to Lin Feng's cultivation. A cultivator's youth was the most important period of their life. It was the time to build their foundation. It was like building a house. The deeper and firmer the foundation, the higher the house could be built. Lin Feng had encountered the fire Qilin in his early days of cultivation. It could be said that it was his fortune. The fire Qilin had saved Lin Feng a lot of detours. Moreover, the fire Qilin had taught Lin Feng alchemy. It was inevitable that he would bicker with the fire Qilin. But deep in his heart, Lin Feng was very grateful to the fire Qilin. Without the fire Qilin, he might not be where he was now. Lin Feng was very clear about this. Therefore, after hearing the news about the fire Qilin, Lin Feng was very happy. He asked, "The fire Qilin appeared in the central region? Where did he go? Maybe we'll go to Qilin Mountain. That's the ancestral land of the Qilin clan," Murong Baishan said. Lin Feng nodded his head. Although he really wanted to look for the fire Qilin now, since the 4 old ancestors were about to come out of seclusion, he had to wait. He couldn't leave for the time being. He could only wait until he met the 4 old ancestors before looking for the fire Qilin. 7 days later, Lin Feng received a summons. Someone came and brought the decree of the 4 old ancestors. Lin Feng was now to head to the Taiyuan Immortal Realm. The Taiyuan Immortal Realm was a secret realm controlled by the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. This place was a holy land for cultivation. There were heavenly paradises, Tao comprehension cliffs, various cultivation valleys, and other places. It was the most suitable place to comprehend the Tao. Many experts of the older generation in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters would enter the Taiyuan Immortal Realm to comprehend the Tao. It was said that the Taiyuan Immortal Realm also hid a huge secret. In the Taiyuan Immortal Realm, there was a Taiyuan Immortal Mansion. It was said that it was left behind by an immortal. Immortals were ethereal. There were rumors of immortals in the world, but no one had ever seen one. It was said that immortals could live forever. Immortals established the order of the heavenly Tao. Lin Feng wasn't sure if the Taiyuan Immortal Mansion really existed because he had never seen it with his own eyes. However, since there had always been rumors in the temple that there was a Taiyuan Immortal Mansion in the Taiyuan Immortal Realm, it shouldn't be baseless. However, Lin Feng wouldn't be in charge of the Taiyuan Immortal Realm in the future. Therefore, Lin Feng couldn't explore the secret of the Taiyuan Immortal Realm. There was a galaxy in the Taiyuan Immortal Realm that seemed to be connected to the outer realm. It was densely covered with stars. The 4 old ancestors sat cross-legged among the billions of stars and looked at Lin Feng. Their bodies were hazy and mysterious. The four of them were saint-level spirit array masters and had already transcended the mortal realm. Disciple Lin Feng greets the four old ancestors. Lin Feng bowed to the four old ancestors. No need for formalities. A fleeting voice sounded. Lin Feng lowered his head and stood there quietly. This is the first time we've met. This time, I summoned you here to inform you that when Dao Lingtian, Sun Yimou, and Zhong Jinghuang arrive, the four of us will hand over the authority of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters to you. The way to control people is to have a good relationship with them, not to have absolute control. Don't use people you don't trust, and don't doubt people you use. This is the way to do things, an old ancestor said. Yes, I will remember, Lin Feng replied. The four of you are young and full of vigor. In the future you will all be in charge of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. It's inevitable that there will be different opinions. However, no matter what happens, don't think about splitting the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. Although the four of us will leave the Tianwu continent, there are still more than a dozen Supreme Elders living in seclusion in the Taiyuan Immortal Realm. If your actions harm the interests of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, the Supreme Elders will not sit idly by. They have the right to impeach or even dismiss you, the second old ancestor said. Lin Feng nodded. A top force like the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters naturally needed to be supervised. Lin Feng, Dao Lingtian, Sun Yimou, and Zhong Jinghuang formed the new four great leaders. However, if no one supervised them, there might really be a split in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters in the future. In fact, the existence of the Supreme Elder Group was to supervise the four great leaders. Behind every four great leaders, there would be a Supreme Elder Group to supervise them. This was the only way to ensure that the giant ship of the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters would always sail on the right path. You can leave now. After you return, you can cultivate in the Sacred Tower or travel for a period of time. Wait for the other three to come and hand over the power. Yes, disciple will take his leave. Lin Feng bowed to the four old ancestors and then left. After returning to the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters, Lin Feng did not continue to stay in the Temple of Spiritual Array Masters. He planned to go to the Qilin Mountain to look for the Fire Qilin. It had been a long time since he had seen the Fire Qilin. He did not know how it was doing now. The Qilin Mountain was located in the Qilin Mountain Range. It was a long journey. He needed to take the space-time wormhole to get there, so Lin Feng planned to go to the sacred city first. Then, he would take the space-time wormhole from the sacred city to the ancient city that was closer to the Qilin Mountain. Lin Feng entered the great desolate ancient forest. This place was still filled with danger. But now that Lin Feng was too strong, he didn't have to worry about traveling through the great desolate ancient forest. Help! Who can save us? That night, Lin Feng heard frightened screams. Obviously, these were the voices of two women. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly, and then rushed toward the place where the voices came from. In a valley, Lin Feng saw dozens of forest monsters surrounding two women. There were more than a dozen cultivator corpses lying on the ground. Obviously, they were all killed by the forest monsters. After seeing the two women, Lin Feng was surprised. He actually knew the two women. Chapter 1262. These two women had tried to sell their services to Lin Feng, asking him if he wanted their services. Lin Feng had some impression of them. One of them was voluptuous, while the other was tall and slender. Now they were in trouble. More than 10 forest monsters had surrounded them, and it looked like they wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. Their faces were as pale as paper, and they looked like they were about to fall into despair. When Lin Feng saw that the two women were about to die, Lin Feng appeared, one on the left and the other on the right. He grabbed the two women's waists and moved backwards to avoid the monster's attack. "Sir, it's you!" When they saw Lin Feng, they were pleasantly surprised. Lin Feng nodded at them and quickly left with the two women. It didn't take long for them to escape from the forest monsters. Lin Feng landed in the forest and let go of the two women. He asked, Why are you here? The voluptuous woman replied. We entered the forest in search of a spirit herb, but when we left, we were surrounded by the forest monsters. Everyone else died tragically, and only the two of us were left. Lin Feng said. This forest is filled with danger, and you still dared to come in? You really don't want your lives anymore. The tall woman was on the verge of tears as she said, Sir, you don't understand us independent cultivators. In order to obtain cultivation resources, we often trade our lives for them. The spirit herb we were looking for was called blood caterpillar grass. One stalk could be exchanged for 3 top-grade spirit stones. That was enough for us to risk our lives. Lin Feng muttered to himself. Weren't these 2 women doing that kind of service? Wasn't it easy to earn spirit stones? Why did they have to risk their lives in search of spirit herbs to exchange for spirit stones? As if she knew what Lin Feng was thinking, the voluptuous woman said, Ever since Sir rejected us, we sisters carefully planned our lives. We shouldn't sell our bodies for cultivation resources, so we gave up on that line of work. Lin Feng said. I see. It's good that you don't do that line of work. After pausing for a few seconds, Lin Feng said, You can come with me and leave the forest. Thank you, young master. The 2 girls were pleasantly surprised. The 3 of them left, and found a place with a pool to rest. The tall beauty blushed and said, Young master, we're covered in blood. We're planning to wash ourselves in the pool. Can young master help us guard the pool? We're afraid that cultivators might pass by and spy on us. Lin Feng immediately muttered. You guys are afraid of being peeked at by passing cultivators? I'm a man too. Lin Feng waved his hand and said, All right, you guys can go. Thank you, young master. The 2 girls left with red faces. Lin Feng's back was facing the direction of the pool, but he could still hear the sounds coming from there. From time to time, he could even hear the sounds of laughter. If he turned around, he should be able to see the endless spring scenery. But Lin Feng sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, unmoved. What a stone! The voluptuous beauty looked at Lin Feng's back and couldn't help but snort. She actually hoped that Lin Feng would take the initiative to go over. However, Lin Feng was as motionless as a stone statue, as if he really wasn't interested in the 2 of them at all. This made the voluptuous beauty and the tall beauty feel rather unconvinced. The 2 of them thought that they were first-rate beauties. How could anyone be indifferent in the face of their beauty? The 2 girls put on their clothes and went to Lin Feng's side, thanking Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded and said, It's fine. Since you're done bathing, let's continue. The 2 girls nodded and continued to fly out of the ancient forest with Lin Feng. 3 days later, it started to rain heavily in the ancient forest. Lin Feng and the 2 girls found a cave to take shelter from the rain, but they couldn't leave for the time being. Young master, your clothes are already soaked. Let us help you change, the voluptuous beauty said. Her clothes were also soaked, and one could even see the color of spring. Lin Feng said, Go inside and change. I'll use my magic power to dry your clothes. All right then. The 2 girls nodded and walked towards a corner. It was just enough to block the view of the people outside, so they didn't have to worry about being exposed. Lin Feng used his magic power to dry his clothes, then leaned against a rock and closed his eyes to rest. After a short time, Lin Feng sensed 2 soft bodies leaning against him. He opened his eyes and saw 2 women leaning against him, one on his left and one on his right. Lin Feng frowned and tried to break free from the 2 girls, but they were straddling Lin Feng, so he couldn't break free. What are the 2 of you doing? Lin Feng asked. Young master, we've been wandering the world for a long time, and we sisters have no one to rely on. Our bodies are still pure, and we'll be leaving the ancient forest tomorrow. We don't know when we'll meet again. Maybe we won't meet again in this life, so we want to give our pure bodies to you. Young master, you can have us tonight. As the voluptuous beauty spoke, her red lips had already taken the initiative to kiss him. The heavy rain outside seemed to make it easy for people to do some irrational things. Just like Lin Feng, after a short moment of hesitation, he began to cater to the 2 women. The storm outside couldn't hide the spring in the cave. Sometimes, Mount Wu would feel shy. Her jade-like arms and shoulders filled the garden with spring. It was hard for him to control himself. Together, they flew into the clouds. If it was purely for the fate of this one night, perhaps he could even leave behind some beautiful memories in his life. I only wish I had. There was no need for it to last forever. Forget each other in the pugilistic world. However, when Lin Feng was entangled by the long-legged beauty, the voluptuous beauty got up and stroked Lin Feng's back with her right hand. Then, she pressed on the third vertebra of Lin Feng's spine. This was the Achilles heel of a person. Once it was heavily injured, the body would be paralyzed instantly. It turned out that these two women were actually scheming against Lin Feng. In order to kill Lin Feng, they did not hesitate to sacrifice everything. "It's done!" A ruthless look appeared in the voluptuous beauty's eyes. Just when she thought she was about to succeed, suddenly, a tyrannical aura spread out from Lin Feng's body, sending her flying. She fell to the ground and couldn't move at all. "You!" The two beauties' expressions changed drastically. They didn't expect Lin Feng to be so vigilant. A man. While he was enjoying it. How could he still be so vigilant? They didn't expect it. The long-legged beauty slapped Lin Feng with her palm, but Lin Feng stopped her first. "Why is it like this?" The two of them cried out in disbelief. Lin Feng said, "Actually, I always suspected that you two had ulterior motives for approaching me, but I couldn't guess your origins, so I played along and cooperated with you. You despicable and shameless man, you clearly guessed everything, and you even took away our pure bodies." The voluptuous beauty glared fiercely at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said helplessly, "It was you two who took the initiative to seduce me. I am a normal man, and you took the initiative to send yourself to me. If I still don't understand the situation, am I still a man?"